What's going on, San Diego? Jon and Jim on a Thursday. Good show lineup for you today. We a lot of Padres talk, not the good Padres talk. It's going to be a rough day, I can tell you that. Darnay Trip, he doesn't know it, but he's joining me at 4 p.m. today. I know we've been texting back and forth about joining the show, and I can't get a clear answer from him. So we're just going to call him at 4 p.m. We're just going to call Darnay Trip at 4 p.m. Later this afternoon. If you want to follow the show, great way to keep up with us. You follow us on social media at Jon and Jim. You follow me on social media as well at Jim Russell SD. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on X. Follow us everywhere. And make sure that you download the iHeartRadio app. Put us in your presets. San Diego Sports 760. Just put us in your number one presets, and also put Jon and Jim in your presets as well. You can keep up with the show, podcasts, daily content, interviews, everything is at the iHeart Radio app. But, all yesterday, we were saying regarding last night's game, big start for Dylan Cease. Big start for Dylan Cease. Let's see if Dylan Cease can turn it around. Let's see if Dylan Cease can become more consistent. Yeah, that didn't happen. Wasn't even close. Dylan Cease put up another awful performance last night. His ERA this year is close to 5. And now the question becomes, one, is this just going to be a lost year for Dylan Cease? And then something that I don't feel like people are fully talking about, because the mindset with this franchise and this team right now is at the trade deadline, they're going to go out and buy, which I still believe, even with the offense the way it is, the lack of production from a lot of guys in your lineup, superstar players underperforming, they are still going to buy at the deadline. I still believe that. Full steam ahead. But what if you could do both? What if you could do both at the deadline? Would you try to look at that? Now, I'm not going to wave the flag today of the team has to trade Dylan Cease after, his really awful first half. But there's no harm in talking about it. There's no harm in discussing things like, hey, should we look at trading Dylan Cease? Maybe we throw his name out there. Let's see what we got. Because, if we're being real here, Dylan Cease has wildly underperformed. He's not the only Padre on this team that's underperformed this year. He's one of many players that have underperformed this year. But at least Fernando Tatis Jr. is doing one thing at an elite level, which is defense. Jackson Merrill is robbing home runs while he hasn't had a home run in forever. He's still doing things that winning players do on the field that's valuable to the team. Don't get me wrong, watching Jackson Merrill at the plate is incredibly frustrating. But what has Dylan Cease done this year besides wildly underperform? I'll wait. He's got a 4.88 ERA. He's 3-9 on the year. He's got a 1.3 whip. Save me with the, his advanced analytics look really good. Oh, his first pitch fastball percentage is really good this year. His velocity's up. Like, what? Dude's got a 4.88 ERA. He's 3-9 on the season, and he gets shelled every other outing. He has had, to me, the most disappointing season of any Padre that was expected to perform this year. We all knew that Martin Maldonado, and oh, by the way, we will get into Martin Maldonado today. We knew he was going to underperform. We knew he was a nothing. We knew that Elias Diaz was going to bring nothing to the table. We knew this bench was the one of the weakest benches in the sport for a team that's expected to contend. But Dylan Cease was expected to be your ace. Dylan Cease was expected to be one of your best pitchers. And he has performed like a number 5, number 4 pitcher number 4 at best. He has not performed anywhere close to an ace. And it's incredibly disappointing because for him, he's going into not only a walk year, it's a walk year where he's potentially looking at trying to get $200+ million in free agency. When you have an agent like Scott Boras, you're looking for top dollar. You think he's going to get top dollar now after the season he's put up so far? Well, Jim, they still have a second half for him to turn it around. You're right. He does. Do you think he's going to turn it around? Do you have faith that Dylan Cease is going to turn into the ace that we saw at times last year for most of last season? I don't know. I think we've reached the point of it is incredibly frustrating to watch this guy pitch. Because the talent's there, the stuff, he has it, but every other outing, he puts up duds. Last night was another dud in the season. And I was waiting post-game for Mike Shildt to throw out he only had a couple bad pitches. Because all the runs he gave up were due to home runs last night, the grand slam and the 2 other home runs. I was waiting for that. Shildt didn't go there, but he went to a completely different place than I thought. Here's Mike Shildt post-game on Dylan Cease's outing.
It is a bit of a head scratcher. We're in the business to find solutions and find answers and get results. This game is challenging sometimes because you do things that you look out and you see a guy that maybe Ruben, even before the game, we're looking at the numbers we talked about prior to first pitch strikes, chase, all the good metrics are in Dylan's favor. And you go out and watch the game tonight and you're like, whoa, here we go. And I made the mental mistake of sitting there in the third inning going, gosh, man, this guy's I can't remember exactly the number of pitches was in third inning. And I'm like, he could throw a no-hitter tonight with the number of pitches because, at least for me, I'm always thinking about where guys are in the count, kind of gauging where they're going to be in the game. And I'm like, this guy's on pace for, and then McCann hits a homer. So I'll take the hit for that one. But yeah, and also when you have good stuff, you don't usually get away with some mistakes, and he's just not. The Perdomo ball was the biggest mistake in a place that he likes it, but we also need to be able to score for him too. But when you trend in a lot of positive areas consistently with kind of stuff that Dylan has, all you can do is just keep going, and eventually those balls will be fly outs or ground balls or foul balls. But tonight they weren't.
Yeah, I didn't think to myself in the third inning, man, this guy's got no-hitter stuff tonight.
He didn't?
No, I did not go that route. He did have 2 quick innings. To Mike Shilt's credit, he always at, I think, 24 pitches there in the third inning. So, yeah, his stuff looked good in the beginning of the game. But you know what, Mike? If you watch Dylan Cease on a nightly basis, I know you do, obviously, because you're the freaking manager of this team. That's what Dylan Cease does. He'll look good, and then he'll completely fall off a cliff. That's the story of his year. There's always, 1 or 2 innings where he decides, you know what? I've been cruising. Let's walk the 8-9 batters. And then let's give up a 3-run homer. That's his season. He'll look good and then decide, you know what? Let's throw a wrench in this. I'm going to walk 2 straight guys. Screw it. And that, to me, has been the story of Dylan Cease's season. Wildly inconsistent. Yes, there's no denying he has great stuff. But it's not clicking this year. It's just not. And it's not just, him that's not clicking. It's his team's offense that's not clicking either. Another just putrid performance from the offense last night. They continue to be one of the worst offensive teams in baseball. And you start thinking to yourself, wow, is this team really going to be this bad offensively for the entire season? Are they really going to do this again? like they did in 2023. And by the time they woke up, it was way too late. Like I said yesterday, heard in the open, at some point, you are who you are. You aren't changing. This is who they are. They can't score runs. They can't hit for power. And you got a pitcher, a star pitcher, that finished fourth in Cy Young voting last year. Whoever since game one of the Dodger series in the NLDS last year has been awful for you. Awful. So now the question becomes, like I said to start the show, can you do both at the deadline? We know they're going to buy. That's without a question. And there's some crazy rumors floating around today that we'll get into later in the show from Jeff Passan and Jim Bowden on who the Padres might be targeting at the deadline. We know they're going to buy. But would you throw Cease's name out there just to see what he could get you, even in an awful year? All it takes is one team out there to think to themselves, we're contenders. We need pitching. We think we can fix them. I mean, you're not re-signing Dylan Cease at the end of the season. Do you really trust Dylan Cease in a postseason game? Like, honest question. If this team were lucky enough to make the postseason, would you trust Dylan Cease in a postseason game? My answer to that would be nope. I wouldn't trust Dylan Cease in a postseason game. Not after what I've seen this year so far and what I saw in the postseason last year, where he completely crumbled. His postseason numbers over his career have been awful. Do you really trust Dylan Cease in a postseason series? And by the way, if they made the postseason, my guess is he wouldn't even pitch a game in the wild card round if Michael King and Yu Darvish were healthy. So you make the postseason with a healthy Darvish and a healthy King, you're not pitching Dylan Cease over those two guys or Nick Pivetta. So what do? Stephen Kolks has a better year than him. Randy Vasquez has had a better year than him. You're getting better production from those guys than you are from Dylan Cease. The one thing that he does bring is he does give you innings. All right. There you go. There's the one positive for Dylan Cease this season. He gives you innings. But they're not good innings. If anything, he's hurting the team. So could you at the trade deadline? Look, I know it's highly unlikely, okay? But I'm just trying to think outside the box here. And knowing that they're going to buy at the deadline, all right? Knowing that Dylan Cease, who has had an awful season, is going to leave in free agency. Most likely, we'll talk about some scenarios where he could return next year, coming up in a bit. But would you put his name out there? Just dangle it, see if anybody bites and gives you maybe what you're looking for or what you want? And maybe you have your cake and eat it too? Would you put Dylan Cease on the trade block? 877-767-4760. 877-767-4760. Text line is open, 70470. Start your message with team. We'll talk about that, and we'll give you a scenario where Dylan Cease could return next year. Coming up next, you're listening to Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, if you haven't already, download the iHeartRadio app, put San Diego Sports 760 into your number one preset, and then put Jon and Jim into your presets as well. If you missed any of the show, everything is uploaded to the podcast. All hours, interviews, everything is right there. So you can have it at the ready of a push of a button. Just go to the iHeartRadio app, put San Diego Sports 760 in your presets, as well as Jon and Jim. So back to Dylan Cease, once again, just an awful outing last night. Back-to-back outings now where he's given up multiple home runs, gave up 3 home runs last night. His stuff is fine this year, but again, is it really fooling anybody? Not really. And the question I posed was, would you put Dylan Cease out there on the trade market just to see, would anybody bite? I'm not saying actively look to trade him, but you have to be smart about this. And that maybe this team isn't it this year. What have you seen that would convince you otherwise that this offense is going to turn this thing around? You got too many underachieving players on this team. You have no bench. Your catching position is putrid. Yes, you have a amazing back end of your bullpen. And right now, you got one starter in your rotation, one that you can rely on every 5th day, and that's Nick Pivetta. I can't rely on Dylan Cease. I got to see it from you, Darvish. Kolek and Vasquez have been decent this year, but to ask those 2 guys to be pitching in big situations for you, that's not fair to them. And then who knows what's going to happen with Michael King? When he returns, is he going to look exactly like Michael King hey, I slept wrong on my shoulder, I'm out for 2 months? Probably not, because he's going to need time to ramp things up. You're not going to just all of a sudden be able to throw him out there and say, give me 8 innings. He's going to be on a pitch count. He's going to be on an innings limit. Same thing with you, Darvish, right now. So I think if you put him out there in the trade market, there's no harm. Now, again, it would be reported on it. It might cause a little problem because it's whoa, the Padres are shopping Dylan Cease. But still, what gives you hope as a Padres fan that this team is going to turn this thing around? And even if they do, you have to ask yourself, will Dylan Cease turn it around as well? Will Dylan Cease be a guy that you could rely on in a postseason game? My answer to that right now is nope. So it doesn't do any harm. I'm not actively saying go and trade the guy because he's had a bad first half of the season and he's going to be a free agent and he's not going to return here most likely, and he's going to walk and you're not going to get anything for him. But what I am saying is, be smart about this. Think about what you have as a team, AJ. And while I know you're going to buy at the deadline and you're trying to probably go big here, what's the harm in throwing Dylan Cease out there? Because if he's not a guy that you can rely on in the postseason, then what's the point? Right? What's the point? He's hurting this team this year. He's going to be a free agent. You made the mistake of not doing it with Blake Snell back in 2023. Now that team, I felt way differently. I felt that team just completely did not have it that year. This team, there's still a glimmer of hope. I'm not going to give up on them just yet. But they are making it extremely difficult for me, and I'm sure a lot of you Padres fans out there, to believe that they're going to turn this thing around. There's only one Mike Shildt. Not everybody thinks like Mike Shildt. And you know what? Mike Shilt's not right all the time either. All right, he's the most optimistic person I've ever seen in my entire life. But at some point, You got to be real with yourself. All right, let's duck in a call here before we get to break. 877-767-4760 if you want to chime in on the show today. Let's go to Eric on line 1. Eric, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, thanks for taking the call, guys. I enjoy listening. This whole thing with the Padres, right? I mean, they're a huge mystery. I mean, their pitching, their offense, their depth in the bat lineup, and it just doesn't seem to be clicking at all, and it hasn't been at any point in the season. I mean, our pitchers were giving up runs early on in the season, but the offense was on this crazy tear, and then the bullpen would come in and then shut down the opposing team. And I kind of like what you said about Mike Shildt, not always being correct or right. I mean, at some point, we're going to have to look at, the coaches in the dugout, including Mike Shildt, and say, hey, you have the lineup here, you have the players, you got the pitching staff, what's going on, right? But to me, I mean, being one game out of a wild card spot, they're going to have to turn this around and turn it around fast. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Eric. Appreciate it. If you want to chime in, 877-767-4760 if you want to chime in. Phone lines are open. Dave, we'll get your call on the other side. But yeah, I think that this team right now is it's teetering. It's definitely teetering on people's confidence. And if they were to just squeak into the postseason as this team is constructed right now, no shot. They got no shot. None. And will 2 average bats completely change that? We'll discuss that on the other side. Also, later in the show today, Darnay Trip. He's joining us at 4 p.m. I've decided. Darnay, buddy, you're joining us at 4 p.m. All of that coming up next on Jon Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. The Padres go for a series split tonight against the D-backs down at Petco Park. It's going to be Eduardo Rodriguez going for Arizona and Randy Vasquez on the hill for San Diego. First pitch is set for 6:40. A's slugger Brent Rooker is adding his name to the list of home run derby participants, which takes place Monday in Atlanta. He will become the first A's player in the home run derby since Matt Olson in 2021. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Start at Indeed.com/credit.
All right, back here on Jon and Jim. 877-767-4760 phone lines are open. Let's get to Dave here on line 2. Dave, how you doing today, man?
Jim, thank you so much for the to the point, blunt honesty. I listened to you last night, and I was so proud of you because I remember the infamous night that you went off the rails when Emilio Pagan did what he did. And last night was another one of those nights where you have another pitcher just giving up home runs like lollipops, and it was deserving. And I appreciate your honesty, your forthrightness, and genuinely I give you salutes for that. So
thanks, Dave.
Thank you again. Having said that, this franchise is teetering, and I don't know which way it's going to teeter. And one of the problems that somebody has to ask that ownership, they're not a deep pockets ownership. They've had a lot of problems since the TV revenue went away. At some point, this fan base is going to lose patience because they've been giving, supporting, and the future does not look especially bright given the fact that they have cemented themselves into a corner with these legacy contracts that frankly haven't delivered since the guys have been here. The goal was to get to a World Series. We're not close. Quintero, I think, brought it up today, and I think he was right on target. So the question to ponder, how can this ownership absorb a drop-off, which will be significant in attendance at some point, if they can't get this thing right this year, right now? And given the depth of problems that they don't have a bench. That entire bench needs to be shipped down to AA, single A, wherever the heck they found them. The entire bench needs to go. And we haven't even gotten to the position players yet. Yes, shop Dylan Cease. He's a career 4+ ERA from what I can figure out. You correct me if I'm wrong in that. I know he's close to 5 right now. Shop him, get what you can for him, because you're sure as hell not going to sign him later. And if you think that Mike King and Yu Darvish can hold on and hold out for the rest of the year and perform, then he becomes highly expendable. That's all I got to say. We're teetering. I don't know which way we're going to go, Jim, but it's the direction and the trend. And Quintero again said the keyword stay trends are not looking good. I can't favor this team in very many games up until July 31st at this point, the way they're going.
Thanks, Dave, for the call. If you want to give me a call, 877-767-4760. Also, text line's open, 70470. Start your matchup with team. Dylan Cease's career ERA is under 4. It's 3.87. It's not the best in the world, but it's also not the worst in the world. It's fine. I'm just more concerned about, with Dylan Cease's up and down years. And especially with this year, how important it is for Dylan Cease. And he's kind of wet in the bed. Like, he has a golden opportunity in front of him, and he's not performing. And this team needs him to perform. This team needed him to be the ace for this team once Darvish went down early in the season. And then once Michael King went down with his sleeping nerve injury, you needed somebody to step up. And you know who actually has stepped up the most in the rotation? It's been Nick Pivetta. That's been the ace of this team. And if you told me at the start of the season that Nick Pivetta would be their best pitcher, I would say that's a problem. Nothing against Nick Pivetta, But at the same time, you didn't sign Nick Pivetta to be a number one. You signed Nick Pivetta to round out the rotation and be a 4, a 3 at best. And now he's your 1. Like that's not good. And I agree. The trends lines with this team, they're not good trend lines, especially offensively. I mean, they are dangerously close, Brent, to having a negative run differential on the year. Their overall run differential this season is +4.
How is that even possible that they can have a winning record and have like a negative?
Because their pitching has been that good, especially their bullpen. Their bullpen has been that good. But when you look at all the teams, and we talked about this the other day, Kevin had it in his newsletter. You look at all the teams in baseball with around the same runs scored as the Padres, and look at the teams with around the same run differential as the Padres. All of them are either at or under 500. Yet the Padres are a team right now where they're 6 games over, but it doesn't feel like they're 6 games over. You know, if they, drag themselves to the deadline and they're 5, 6, 7 over, but they're still playing kind of, back and forth, look kind of okay one game, look awful the next, starting pitching's kind of inconsistent other than Nick Pivetta. And then, the offense continues to be one of the worst offenses in baseball. They're still going to buy, but how much confidence do you have in them that they're going to just flip that switch, which is what they did last year to their credit. To their credit, last year, they flipped the switch and they went 43-19. The problem is last year's team offensively was way better than this team's offense. Like, it's not even close. Little exercise, all right? The Padres this year, Brent, they have scored a total of 369 runs, okay?
Okay.
Last year's team scored 760. All right. To get to last year's total of runs scored, they would need to average 5.5 runs a game for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
To get to last year's offense, as far as runs per game goes, okay? This year's team, for the remainder of the year, there's 72 games remaining in the season. They would need to average 5.5 runs per game to equal last year's offense as far as runs per game goes. I'm not talking about home runs or their average with runners in scoring position. I'm just talking about runs per game. They would need to average 5.5 for the remainder of the season.
Well, if they do that, they should win like 80% of their games in the second half of the year and win the division and everything.
100%. And they would go on the exact same type of run that they went on last year. As long as the pitching would remain the same, the bullpen remains dominant, then yeah, this team would go on a massive run. But think about that. To equal last year's run total for the season, they would need to average over 5.5 or just about 5.5 runs per game. This team hasn't scored 5 runs per game consistently all year long. You think they're just going to flip that switch in the final 70 games and score over 5 runs per game? With the bench they have and the underachieving stars they have performing this year. I mean, if you think that, you must be Mike Shildt then. So look, they are, as Dave said, he's right. They're teetering. Do I still have faith in them to make the postseason? Yeah, I do. But to do anything besides just make the postseason, I don't. I think I'm off that train right now, unless something drastically changes, and we'll see what happens at the deadline, and we'll see what moves they make. But as of right now, the only faith that I have in this team is that they could scratch and claw and sneak their way into the postseason. Is that good enough? Is that good enough for you? We snuck our way in the postseason. No, the goal with this team is to make a deep run in the postseason. And right now, I feasibly cannot see that. I can't picture it unless some things drastically change with this club. And there's one thing, well, actually, there's multiple things that needs to change like right now. And I'll tell you what that is coming up next. You're listening to Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, SDFC, they're back on the pitch Saturday night when they play Chicago Fire FC. You can hear the match live Saturday night starting at 5 p.m. right here on San Diego Sports 760 and your home for SDFC. So there was a moment in the game last night, Brent, where I had to do a triple take to actually believe what was happening.
Okay.
So in the fifth inning, all right, fifth inning, let me just pull this up here. Fifth inning comes around and Padres end up having a runner at second base after Jake Cronenworth doubles. Sorry, Xander Bogaerts singled, then Jake doubled, so you have runners on second and third. Bryce Johnson grounds out. So now there's 2 outs. Run scored. It's 6-1. So there's a runner on third base. There's 2 outs in the fifth inning. You're down 6-1. Your number 9 hitter's coming to the plate, which is Martin Maldonado. Mike Shildt pinch hits Martin Maldonado, or pinch hits for Martin Maldonado with Trenton Brooks. If you are consistently, and this has happened multiple times, if you are consistently pinch hitting for your catcher in the fifth inning of games with a guy off the bench that's hitting 167, that tells you all you need to know about the problems with this team. It is time to end the Martin Maldonado, I'm not even going to say experience because he's been out there almost every day. But it's time to end Martin Maldonado. It's way past due, way past time. Okay? I'm sorry. You cannot consistently have a player on this team get as much playing time as Martin Maldonado and get pinch hit for as much as he has been in the fifth inning of games.
It's just weird in general just to pinch hit for a catcher, unless it's like the playoffs, because most teams will carry 3 catchers just in case. But if you only have 2 and you're going to pinch hit, what if the backup catcher would have got hurt?
It blew my mind. I was like, what in the hell is happening right now? Now I'll defend Mike Shildt here. Okay, I'm going to defend Mike Shildt on this because post game he said, and we don't have the sound because I couldn't find it anywhere. Padres, why don't you post your entire press conference online? Thanks. But I listened to Mike Shildt post game, and Kevin asked a question about, hey, is this really feasible to keep pinch hitting, for Martin Maldonado in the fifth inning of games? This has happened multiple times where you send a pinch hitter up for him. And he said something pretty interesting, and it was along the lines of, I'm doing my best with what I have to work with. That's essentially what Mike Shildt said last night. The things that I'm given, the tools that I'm given, I'm trying to work with them to the best of my ability. And I agree with him because what is he supposed to do? He has no other option. He's not the general manager of this team, even though it seems like he has a huge say in why Martin Maldonado still, on this roster, which to me is mind-blowing. But what is he supposed to do? What is Mike Shildt supposed to do? There's nobody on this bench. Bryce Johnson, Trenton Brooks, Jose Iglesias, Tyler Wade, who has gone MIA, Elias Diaz, and Martin Maldonado. What is Mike Shildt supposed to do?
It makes sense. In a certain way, it's almost like that phrase about, trying to make chicken salad out of chicken, to where, they give him the ingredients and, they give him basic ingredients and expect a gourmet meal.
It's like going on the show Chopped on Food Network. And you're like, have you watched that show, Brent?
No, I was just thinking of Iron Chef when the guy is like, tonight's ingredient is Garbage.
Well, here's the thing: on Iron Chef, they actually give you good ingredients. On Chopped,
I know, but that was the joke that Shilt's Iron Chef, you'd get garbage.
On Chopped, they give you a bunch of crap ingredients, and you're supposed to make a good meal out of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
That sounds kind of interesting, actually.
Mike Shildt is like on Chopped. He was given a basket. He opens the basket up, and you see Martin Maldonado and Elias Diaz and Trent Brooks and Bryce Johnson. Hey, go make a winning team out of that. So I agree with Mike Shildt. It's a clear cry for help. I put it on Twitter last night. It's mind-numbing to consistently hear Mike Shildt defend those guys. But at the same time, what the hell is he supposed to do? He even said it as much. He said, I have to work with what I'm given. And what he's given is a pile of crap. So this needs to be the end of Martin Maldonado. This needs to be the end of him catching as much as he is. It's over. Okay? He's one of the worst catchers in the sport. You can save it with, oh, well, the staff's done really well and they've, 14 shutouts this year because of Elias Diaz and Martin Maldonado. Give me a break. No. Okay? You can't put lipstick on this pig. All right? This pig is too ugly. Nothing will fix this. It's time to move on. And I bet you deep down in Mike Shilt's heart, his heart of hearts, even though it's rainbows and butterflies in Mike Shilt's heart no matter what, he knows this can't continue. He knows that what he's working with is not good enough. And if you're going to give him guys like Trent Brooks and Bryce Johnson and Martin Maldonado and Elias Diaz, what do you expect him to do? Talking to you, AJ. He's talking to you, AJ Preller. You gave him a pile of chicken you know what and expected him to make chicken salad out of it. And the crazy part is, actually it's not even crazy, we all saw this coming. There's not one person, unless you're a Padres homer, a shill for the team, or you're employed by the team, that thought that the combination of Elias Diaz and Martin Maldonado was going to work. And with the bench pieces they had, and you thought it was going to work. It wasn't. You could see this coming from a mile away, as we predicted. The depth of this team was a huge talking point in the offseason. And nothing has changed with the depth. Has to change come tomorrow. Right now, actually. You have Luis Campusano. You bring him up. You have to DFA Martin Maldonado. Make the move. Rip the Band-Aid. All right, coming up next, an interesting trade proposal from Jeff Passan and Jim Bowden. We'll give you that trade proposal coming up next on Jon and Jim. Stay right here on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Aleve. The Padres go for a series split tonight against the D-backs down at Petco Park. First pitch is at 6:40. It's going to be Eduardo Rodriguez going against Randy Vasquez. A's slugger Brent Rooker is adding his name to the list of home run derby participants, which takes place Monday in Atlanta. He will become the A's first player in the home run derby since Matt Olson in 2021. Life doesn't wait, and neither should you. Aleve can help you deal with pain less throughout your day. With just one pill, Aleve lasts up to 12 hours. Don't let those aches and pains hold you back from doing what's important to you. Use as directed.
All right, hour 2 of Jon and Jim on a Thursday. Darnay Trip is scheduled to join us at 4 p.m. Have a back page all ready for you lined up later in the show as well. We have the wrap. Also, we have a pair of Incubus tickets to give away later in the show as well. So make sure you tune in for that. If you want to give me a call, lines are open. 877-767-4760. Text line is open as well as our YouTube chat. Just search for Jon and Jim 760 on YouTube. What do you got, Brent?
We also have a couple pairs of tickets to go see Billy Currington and Kip Moore at Gallagher Square on Saturday, July 19th.
Oh, so we have multiple tickets.
Yeah, we got a couple prizes.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. So make sure you're listening for that. Again, the number to call is 877-767-4760. Do not call right now. When I give away those tickets later in the show, that's the number you call. So earlier today, Jeff Passan put out a piece about the trade deadline. And whenever Jeff speaks and whenever Jeff writes something about, rumors, you take that very seriously. I mean, Jeff Passan he gets close to 100% of his reporting correct.
He's the Shams of baseball.
Yeah, he is the Shams of baseball. He is not I'm going to throw these rumors out there and then it completely doesn't happen, or, he doesn't report something and then it just doesn't happen, like Ken Rosenthal. So when he puts out, this article, you have to read it very carefully and see if he mentions anything about the Padres. And he did. This is what Jeff had to say about the Padres' interest in Jarren Duran. He has been a player that's been linked to the Padres for a little while now. He said, quote, "No player and team have been linked as strongly as Duran and the Padres." Beyond shortstop Leo DeVries, who's believed to be off limits, and catcher Ethan Salas, their farm system is middling. But no one does creativity like GM AJ Preller. And whether that means facilitating a deal through a third team or including one of their high leverage relievers like closer Robert Suarez, San Diego is willing to go places most other organizations would never consider. Yeah, I don't know if Jarren Duran does it for me, guys. I don't. If you get the Jarren Duran from last year, but what this team needs is they need a right-handed bat. They need a catcher. They need a bench piece. Jarren Duran's not any of that. He's none of that. And he would cost you an arm and leg. To the point where you look at your system and you got nothing other than Ethan Salas, who we still don't even know, if he's going to be anything in his career, and Leo DeVries. Prospects are suspect until proven otherwise. But I mean, those are some pretty strong words there from Jeff Passan about the Padres' interest in Jarren Duran. And when Jeff speaks, you have to pay attention. San Diego is willing to go places most other organizations would never consider. Jarren Duran's a nice player. He's had a fine year compared to his last year or his year last year, not even close. Like, I'll pull up his numbers and they're just, I mean, they're fine. But do you need Jarren Duran, or do you need a catching upgrade and a bench piece and a right-handed bat? Because frankly, and I see it in the chat and on YouTube, and you guys are absolutely right, Gavin Sheets has kind of taken over left field. You know, offensively, Gavin Sheets is their second best offensive player on the team. Someone just walked by the studio that I haven't seen in a long time. And he just gave me a look. So sorry about that. But back to my point, Gavin Sheets has really taken over left field. He's making the routine plays. He's not running into the wall anymore. And he's your second best offensive player. So you're really not looking, I would think, for an upgrade in left field at this moment. More than anything, you need a right-handed bat. You need a DH. You need a bench piece. You need a catcher. Jarren Duran's none of that.
If the Padres were a car, we need like a muffler and we need like an alternator. But you know, Duran is like, he's rims.
It's like, you don't need rims.
Yeah, it's like we don't need the rims. They're nice and they look nice, and you know, if you can afford them, then sure. But you know, we have other pressing needs that we need to take care of before we, you know, spend our money on rims.
So here's the thing with Jarren Duran. His year, it's been fine. 262, 8 home runs, 50 RBIs, 15 stolen bases. He's got a 756 OPS on the year. He's got, you know, 10 triples, 24 doubles. That's an upgrade, but it's also going to cost you a lot. And this team is already left-hand dominant. I'm just looking at like the cost reward here. You go out and you get Jarren Duran, it's going to cost you a lot. And in turn, is he really the piece that you absolutely need to fix things? I don't think there's one piece out there that's going to just, you know, snap of the fingers, gonna fix everything. The main thing and what we've talked about the most is you're going to need Fernando Tatis Jr. and Jackson Merrill and, you know, Xander Bogaerts to step up, because the stars on this team are the most important thing. You got $1.3 billion invested in your lineup. Those guys need to perform. Yes, they need to have replacements at catcher and DH and your bench. But you go out and get Jarren Duran, who would be under team control for the foreseeable future. And we know how much AJ loves to get guys that are under team control. At what cost? And would that really help you as a baseball club and take you over the top to where you need to get to? Is a Jarren Duran move going to turn this team into a better offensive club? Or is it Fernando Tatis Jr. and Jackson Merrill being better offensively that's going to turn your team into a better offensive club? Along with potentially a couple average bats that you can go out and get on the market. Would Jarren Duran, the cost that he's going to demand, because the Red Sox are not just going to give up Jarren Duran for nothing, is that going to help you more than a guy like Taylor Ward would help you? You know, Taylor Ward, 20 home runs on the year, right-handed bat. You know, we're going to have Darnay on later in the show, and he put out a tweet earlier in the month or last month, I believe, and it was a great tweet. It was breaking down all the bats that AJ Preller has traded for in recent memory while they're contending. and what they did the rest of the season while they were here in a Padres uniform, and you want to know how many of them actually produced for the team after AJ Preller traded for them, I'll give you a hint. The number's less than 1. It's 0. There has not been one move pitching-wise. Sorry, not pitching. Hitting-wise. There's not been one move hitting-wise that AJ has made at the deadline in the last 6 years that has paid off for that season. You know, Juan Soto was the best offensive player in 2023, but the dude did hit, I think, sub 220 in 2023. Or 2022, excuse me. Like, he didn't light the world on fire when he got traded here. He struggled. We all remember that. Now, he heated up a little bit in the postseason, but the rest of the 2022 season, Juan Soto did not light the world on fire. You know, you remember guys like Adam Frazier? Yeah, they did nothing. Brandon Drury? Nothing. G-Man Choi? Nothing.
Double Bird, Ian Kinsler.
Mitch Moreland? Nothing.
Mitchy Two Bags. Don't let John hear you say that.
I know, it's John's like favorite player. You know, Josh Bell? Nothing. He did have a big home run in the postseason off Scherzer, though. I'll give him that. But you're running, you're running a risk here. If you go out and you try to go big and that player doesn't produce for you, then you have just once again paid a lot of prospect capital for this player to not have this team be turned around in the second half. It's up to the main guys to produce. It's up to Fernando. It's up to Jackson Merrill. It's up to Xander Bogaerts and Luis Ariz and Manny Machado and Gavin Sheets. Those are the guys that are going to have to be the bell cows of this team. They have to produce consistently. Going out and getting Jarren Duran, I don't think is going to be the magic elixir to change the club's fortunes. So all of a sudden they're a team that scores 5.5 runs per game.
I think that's the thing this year. There really is no magic elixir out there. You know, it doesn't matter what kind of trade package AJ puts together. You know, they can fix some things, but yeah, there's no one player or, a handful of players that's, out there and available that, they can just trade for and then poof, all their problems are just going to, fade away.
I agree. It's the guys they have on this team that are going to need to turn this thing around. Because if you are relying on whatever move AJ makes at the deadline, because you know he's going to buy, you just know it. You can't rely on that move to be the move that just flips the switch for the team. It might light a fire under these guys, but you're running a risk. If it doesn't work, then you bought at the deadline and you traded away a bunch of prospects, and for what? Going out and getting average players to replace the well below average players that I mentioned is the move. And you already have someone in-house that I think right now should be at the big league level, and that is Luis Campusano. Like, the move that should be made right now is Luis Campusano has been called up from AAA. Martin Maldonado has been DFA'd. That's move number one. The next moves the team needs to make after that, there is another name out there that is intriguing that Jim Bowden proposed today that would help the catching position. I'll tell you what that move is coming up next. You're listening to Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. Our iHeartRadio Music Festival is back. Live performances by Bryan Adams, Ed Sheeran, John Fogerty, Mariah Carey, Maroon 5, Sammy Hagar, The Offspring, Tim McGraw, and more. September 19th and 20th at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. 2 nights, 1 stage. Buy tickets at asx.com. Get them now before they sell out. So Jeff Passan is linking Jarren Duran to the Padres. Who's Jeff Bowden, who has been talking a lot about the Padres recently? Who's Jeff Bowden linking the Padres to? Take a listen.
With Atlanta, they're not going to do a rebuild. They're not even going to do a reboot. But that being said, you mentioned Marcell Ozuna with the hip, still has some power. We still have some teams that need a little bit of offense to their lineup. And I think there's no doubt that if Alex has the right deal for Ozuna, he will move on from him. I've also heard that there's a couple of teams in particular, San Diego and Tampa Bay, that would like to pry Sean Murphy from them, knowing they have Drake Baldwin as their long-term catcher there. So I think there's a possibility that they could go. But if Atlanta does anything, it will probably be Ozuna, Murphy, or something small. But all the rumors about Acuna and Albies and Riley and some of these other bizarre, Chris Sale name I've heard as well, I'm not getting that impression from the Atlanta Braves at all. So I think it's small tweaking at the very most at the deadline for Atlanta.
Sean Murphy's a name that's been talked about. He would be a great fit here in San Diego, I feel like. He would fix their problems behind the plate. But here's the problem with Sean Murphy. How are you going to afford him? He's owed $15 million next year. $15 million this year, but you cut that a little, it's probably around, what, 6.5, $6 million left on his deal this season. He can't really stay healthy. And he would probably cost you a lot. Not only in prospects, but, how are you going to fit that money into the budget? So like that to me is the biggest thing with Sean Murphy. There's no doubt about the player Sean Murphy, how he fits here in San Diego would be perfect fit. Bye-bye Martin Maldonado. Bring up Luis Campusano. Go and trade for Sean Murphy. Bye-bye Elias Diaz. Imagine if come August 1st, Brent, their catching duo is Luis Campusano and Sean Murphy. Talk about holy upgrade.
Yeah, say a definite upgrade.
But how possible is that? And how likely is that? I would say not very, unfortunately. And starting the show off today about Dylan Cease and, the prospects of trading him. Do I think they're going to trade Dylan Cease? No, I don't. But I'm throwing the idea out there of what if you just dangled his name? Just see what's the harm? Like, what could you get for Dylan Cease? I'm not saying to trade him because then, frankly, you'd have more problems on your team when you have other problems you need to address first. I agree with that. But like looking long-term future here, next year, and I don't even want to really talk that much about next year, but it's a reality and it's coming up quick. Next year, your rotation is bleak. Who knows if Darvish is going to continue his career? We have no idea how Joe's going to perform off Tommy John. Nick Pavetta's great, but other than that, you got Randy Vasquez and Stephen Kolk back in your rotation. You do have to think about the future as well. We all talk here on the radio and on social media about what the team needs to do right now. But AJ Preller's job is about what to do right now and the future. He's got to think about that. And oh, by the way, a story that no one's really talking about, we've mentioned it here before, is AJ going to get a contract extension? Is AJ going to get extension here past 2026? Because he's got 1 year left on his deal, guys. He's got 1 year left on his deal. And there's no way you're going to have a lame duck GM and expect him to, make all the moves that's necessary to win. Like that's the story in itself right there, which will be talked about at another time. And, we can dive deeper into that as the offseason comes around. But, AJ's got to win right now while also worrying about next year and potentially years after that. But I mean, he doesn't even have a contract extension, so who knows? And if he's trying to win right now and he has no idea if he's going to get a contract extension, maybe you do go all out. Maybe you do say, screw it. I'm going to go do everything I possibly can to get Jaren Duran. Prospects be damned. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to get Sean Murphy. But like, you also have to get past John Seidler now. And how is that money going to fit? How are you going to add that much money at the deadline without subtracting from your roster right now? Those are all questions that this team has going forward. Sean Murphy would look great in a Padres uniform. Problem is, how are you going to go acquire him? The money is a huge issue. And AJ doesn't have a contract extension. AJ is working here kind of like playing for his job. And is John Seidler going to pony up any money or give AJ the opportunity to add more money to this roster? My guess would be probably not. But if he does say yes, and if he does say, hey, AJ, go out and, make the team better, we'll worry about the money on the other side, then that's great. Go get Sean Murphy. Go get Jaren Duran. Screw it. Go big. But even if they did go big, they still need their star players on the team that are right now, in this lineup to perform. Because if those guys still didn't perform, the moves they make at the deadline ain't going to matter. All right, coming up later in the show, Darnay Trip's going to join me at 4 p.m. We have tickets to give away to Incubus. And who else do we have tickets to give away to, Brent?
Billy Currington.
Billy Currington. Also, the Rap. Stay right here on Jon Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Mom's Meals at momsmeals.com/California. The Padres go for a series split tonight against Arizona down at Petco Park. First pitch is set for 6:40. It's going to be Eduardo Rodriguez going for the Diamondbacks and Randy Vasquez going for the Friars. And ace slugger Brent Rooker is adding his name to the list of home run derby participants, which takes place Monday in Atlanta. He will become the first A's player to be in the home run derby since Matt Olson in 2021. Are you having trouble accessing healthy meals following a hospital stay or to support a health condition? Mom's Meals delivers nutritious meals tailored to your health needs. Mom's Meals works with your health plans and state programs to provide meals at no cost to those who are eligible. See if you qualify. momsmeals.com/California.
All right, back here on Jon and Jim. Darnay Trip's going to join me at 4 p.m. So ESPN put out mid-season grades in baseball. And, you know, these mid-season grades are in power rankings. They are what they are. It's like, whatever. But I wanted to see what ESPN thought of the Padres. So click on the link, scrolling down, find the Padres, and here's what they say. They give the Padres a B-. A B-. They say the Padres are probably fortunate to be where they are given some of their issues. As expected, the offensive depth has been a problem. Not as expected, Dylan Cease has struggled while Michael King's injury after a strong start has left them without a year's dynamic 1-2 punch. We talk about Yu Darvish. We also talk about their problems against good teams in baseball, because against teams over 500, they have had issues. So B-. Do you agree with that? 877-767-4760. Or you could text us 70470, start your message with team. B-.
I agree with the first sentence in their thing. They're probably lucky to be where they are, all things considered.
The Padres are probably fortunate. Yeah, they're very fortunate to be 6 games above 500 right now at 49-43. Very fortunate, because they do not play like a team that's over 500. They do not play like a team 6 games over 500 at all. They play like a team who is not only a 500 team, but offensively, and it's just a fact now that they're one of the worst offenses in the sport. They don't have just a couple issues. They have a multitude. They have multiple issues. And going forward, we're going to find out if these issues get resolved or not, because right now the confidence level in this team isn't very high with the fan base. Do I think you should jump off the bandwagon right now? No. A lot can still happen. Like they could have a week stretch or a 2-week stretch where they get red hot, and that would then carry them for the rest of the year. And frankly, that's kind of all they need to really do, is have a week or a 2-week stretch where they get red hot, like they did at the start of the year. And that's going to carry them for the rest of the season. Their 14-3 start has carried them to the All-Star break. Think about that. Their 14-3 start has carried this team to the All-Star break, 100 games in. So the first 17 games of the year has carried them all the way up to the 100-game mark, essentially. I don't think this team has another 14-3 stretch left in them, but do they have a 8-2 stretch in them? You go 8-2 in a stretch here and you remain 6 games over 500. Well, now you're 12 games over, and now you feel pretty good. But can this team do it? This team hasn't won back-to-back games in how long? Been a minute.
But we're only like a week away from second half Shildt.
Well, second half Shildt is already in effect because we are technically in the second half of the season.
I don't apply until after the All-Star break.
That is true. it always is interesting to me how the All-Star break is at like game 100 and they're like, oh, the halfway mark. It's like, well, actually, not really.
Yeah.
There's only like 65 games remaining. So we are well past the halfway mark. And as I've said, at some point, you just have to accept this is who this team is. They're a team that has underachieved. They're a team that can't score enough runs. They're a team that can't hit with runners in scoring position. They're a team that has no power. They're a team that still employs guys like Martin Maldonado and thinks that that's, acceptable. But they do have a great bullpen, and to be where they're at just makes me appreciate the bullpen even more. It makes me think that, man, this bullpen is actually like an all-timer with the four horsemen they have in the back with Adam and Morahone and Estrada and Suarez. I mean, without them, who knows where this team would be? This team has those guys pitching in high leverage situations like every other night. This team doesn't blow out anybody. And so in turn, you got the four guys at the back of your bullpen pitching not only way too much, but only in high leverage situations every other day. Now, again, I get it. You're not pitching those guys when you're up 7 runs, but this team is never up 7 runs. This team never blows anybody out. This team never has a stretch where they average 6 runs per game over like a 14-game span. So, going forward here, do you believe that this team is going to make a run? And if they made a run and they get to the postseason with a couple more moves, do you have faith that they're going to make a deep run in the postseason? Because as they're constructed right now, there is no shot at that. Sorry. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Going to the text line today, 858. There you go again. Martin Maldonado in the starting lineup, catching and hitting 9th. SMH. I have not seen the lineup today, but let me just look real quick. So the lineup is out, and it's the same exact lineup as yesterday. Wait, no, different. Fernando Tatis Jr. is leading off. Luis Arraez is hitting 2nd. Manny Machado's the DH tonight, hitting 3rd. Gavin Sheets is your cleanup hitter. Xander's hitting 5th for this team. Jackson Merrill's been moved down to 6th. Jose Iglesias is at 3rd. Jake's at 2nd, hitting 8th. And Martin Maldonado's hitting 9th.
Wow, look at that lineup.
Wow, look at that lineup, Shilty.
You notice he never was like, wow, look at that bench.
Yeah, wow, look at that bench. I mean, Martin Maldonado, man, I can't get over last night getting pinch hit for in the 5th inning with a guy that's hitting 167. Like, what? It's just mind blowing to me. Back to the text line, 858 says, as a Dodgers fan, thanks for listening, I pray they don't get Duran. He's cheap and under control and is a baller. You'd have one of the best outfielders in the league. Keep DeVries, but give up Salas. Dodgers had the best catching prospect in Ruiz. They sent to Washington, and he's fizzled out. He's been awful. Salas has a long way to go and most likely won't pan out to projected potential. I would tend to agree with that. To have a catching prospect actually hit and be, all-star every year for you, pretty unlikely. And if you were to ask me right now, you have to keep one between DeVries and Salas. Who you keeping? Not even close. Keeping DeVries. Not even close. I would ship off Salas if it meant a good return. But what's he going to bring back because he's hurt and you're going to have to find a team that really believes in Ethan Salas, is what I'm saying. Can they do that? 619 number says Duran has more extra base hits than both Manny and Tatis. He'd be the best lefty in their lineup. Potentially, yeah. But let's look at the lineup then. Luis Arraez is a lefty. Jarren Duran would be a lefty. Jake Cronenworth is a lefty.
Jackson Merrill
is a lefty. Gavin Sheets is a lefty. You got 6 of your 9 in the lineup, all lefties. I don't know about that. Because it would make it really easy for an opposing manager in late inning situations to go to a lefty out of the pen. There would be no breaking up of that lineup. You would have too many lefties hitting back to back to back. Like theoretically, all right, let's put together that lineup. And we've put it together before because I remember this exercise that we did. You bring Jarren Duran in, where's he going to hit? You're going to put him in the leadoff spot over Tatis? Sure, let's do it. Tatis, moving them down. So you got Jarren Duran hitting leadoff. All right, there's one lefty. Who you hitting second? You hitting Tatis second? You hitting Arise second? Probably hit Tatis second. Who you hitting third? Manny? I think they'd probably go Luis Arise to split up the lefty-righty. You're hitting Manny cleanup. You're hitting Gavin Sheets fifth. All right? There's your 1 through 5 with Jarren Duran in your lineup. You got Duran, Tatis, Arise, Manny, Gavin Sheets. Now let's look at the rest of the lineup. You have a bunch of lefties remaining. Who's hitting sixth? All right, Xander Bogaerts. You're moving Jackson Merrill back down to seventh. Jackson Merrill hitting seventh. Jake Cronenworth hitting eighth. Martin Maldonado hitting ninth. There's a lot of lefties in that lineup. You can break it up, but at the same time, you know, Jarren Duran's going to cost you a lot. Do you want to pay that much for Jarren Duran when what you really need right now is a right-handed bat? And you need a catcher. And you need a bench piece. It's like, what would you rather do? Would you rather trade everything you have for just Jarren Duran at the deadline? Or would you take everything that you're about to trade for Jarren Duran to pick up 3 pieces to add to this club? Either 1 piece in Jarren Duran or 3 pieces for what you would trade for Jarren Duran. It's kind of the question you have to ask yourself. I know AJ Preller's asking all these questions, but at some point, you're going to need to make a move, buddy. Because you know who's crying out for help right now? That would be Mike Shildt, who desperately needs some more off the bench other than Trenton Brooks and Bryce Johnson and Jose Iglesias. All right, coming up next, you better enjoy baseball while you can, because in a couple years, yeah, it might be off your television. We'll talk about that. Also, Billy Carrington tickets right now. We're going to give them away right now. Caller number 5, 877-767-4760. Again, the number is 877-767-4760. Billy Carrington tickets right now. And Kip Moore at Gallagher Square at Petco Park on Saturday, July 19th. Billy Carrington and Kip Moore at Gallagher Square on Saturday, July 19th. 877-767-4760. Caller number 6 right now. More Jon and Jim coming up next on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. AM radio keeps vital voices accessible. Congress can secure its future, but we need your help. Text AM to 52886 now to support keeping AM radio in cars. Tell your member of Congress to pass legislation now and keep AM radio in cars. Standard message and data rates apply. Darnay Trip is going to join me at 4 p.m. A lot to talk about with Darnay. Rob Manfred. I was praising Rob Manfred yesterday for a lot of things that he's done in baseball, which I actually really like. I like the pitch clock a lot. I think everybody universally, for the most part, likes the pitch clock. It's sped up the game, which desperately needed to happen. I might be one of the only few baseball fans that kind of really likes the ghost runner and extra innings. I know a lot of people don't like it, but again, it's a part of the game that speeds up the game, which I kind of like. ABS getting implemented next year, I think is going to be great for the sport. You know, some tweaks and changes to the All-Star game to make it better for the fan experience. But there's one thing that I think Rob Manfred is going to lose on here going forward, and that's the labor agreement coming up here in a couple of years. Because according to Evan Drellich, he is pushing for a salary cap. The current MLB labor deal expires in December 2026. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Not with the players union. Not with seeing guys like Juan Soto get the money he's getting and Shohei Ohtani getting that type of money. Guys getting, you know, $300, $400, potentially $500 million contracts soon. You're not getting a salary cap. Believe me, I would love a salary cap. But more than anything, I would like a salary floor. A salary floor would then incentivize teams to have to spend money. You know, if you're the Marlins or the Pirates or Tampa, you know, even Sacramento, Las Vegas. You know, if there was a floor out there to say like these teams have to spend X amount of money, I do think that would make the sport better. Like Colorado, go spend some money. But a salary cap, you know, in a perfect world, there's a floor and there's a cap. A perfect world, you got a floor for all teams and you got a cap for all teams. Because if there's no cap, you got teams like the Mets and the Dodgers and the Yankees, and then you got everybody else. And you can't compete with them in the offseason. You can't compete with teams like the Dodgers. You can't compete with the teams like the Mets. And the ways you're going to have to win is through the draft, which is coming up here, you know, next week. Development, your minor league system, and you have to be great that way. Like, look what the Brewers did this offseason. They said bye-bye to Willy Adames. They traded Devin Williams, 2 all-stars for them, 2 huge pieces of their team last year, and they haven't skipped a beat. Now, that's kind of an outlier here. Like, that's an organization that I think is really, really well run. You know, this pitcher they got, Mizorowski, and dude is lights out. But if Rob Manfred wants to have a salary cap in baseball, guess what's going to happen in 2027?
Lockout, baby.
100%. 100%. And with all the positive things that Rob Manfred has done, because he's done a lot of positive things in recent years. I will give him credit. I praised him yesterday. This would just ruin all of the positives that you have done if you have a lockout. You can't have that. You can't miss any games. You cannot have a lockout. And if there is a lockout, the positive things that Rob Manfred has done, nobody's going to care about. And the fans that you have gained over the last couple of years because of the pace of play picking up and, the parity that you have and Shohei Ohtani's helped out a lot with that. And as far as like star power goes and elevating your sport, man, those fans are going to leave very quickly because there will be something else out there that will occupy their time and they're just going to leave. Baseball is on the right trajectory. You can't have this lockout happen because it will take away all the good that you've done over the last 3, 4, 5 seasons. People are just going to be pissed. Can't have it. So if you're throwing out there salary cap or at least a limit for teams on spending, good luck. Scott Boras, the biggest agent in the sport. You think he's going to be okay with the salary cap? Nope.
He already cries collusion if somebody just, actually negotiates with him and doesn't just take his first offer. Oh, nobody's signing anybody. It's collusion.
The one player that actually won't care at all about salary cap is probably Juan Soto because he's already got his money. It's all he cares about.
Oh, come on. He doesn't have enough, though.
That's true. He needs more.
How's he going to pay his mortgage without that all-star bonus?
Right. He needs more money. All right, coming up next, Darnay Trip's going to join me on the other side. Stay with us right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
The sport is sponsored by eBay. The Padres go for a series split tonight against the Diamondbacks down at Petco Park. First pitch is set for 6:40. It's going to be Eduardo Rodriguez going against Randy Vasquez. A's slugger Brent Rooker is adding his name to the list of home run derby participants, which takes place Monday in Atlanta. He will become the first A's player in the home run derby since Matt Olson in 2021. Swapping out your tires, there's nothing like it. With eBay, you'll find the feel you're looking for, from smooth highway rides to grip for rough terrain. Get all the tires you need at all the prices you'll love. eBay, things people love.
All right, hour number 3 of Jon and Jim on a Thursday, and join us right now. You can hear us, right? Darnay Trip is joining us, NBC 7. You're texting me like I can't hear anything. I'm like, what are we talking about? But you can hear me though, right?
I got you.
Okay, we're good. Darnay Trip, NBC 7, joining us here on Jon and Jim. I'll just start right here with Dylan Cease because it's the hot topic of the day. I threw out there, look, it's highly unlikely that they would trade him at the deadline because they're trying to win this year. And Dylan Cease, he's going to give you innings, and he might have a couple outings here and there where he looks really good. But what's the harm in maybe dangling his name out there to see what he could bring you in return? Because you're losing him at the end of the year anyway, and maybe this team isn't it. And at the end of the year, we don't want to be saying, why didn't they trade Dylan Cease at the deadline? And they could have got something back for him because the team didn't make the postseason.
I don't see too much harm in doing it. Obviously, there's the personal aspect of these things. It always gets tricky, but that's part of professional sports, right? I mean, these guys are, Dylan Cease has been traded before. This is nothing new. I think, the unfortunate reality is, Martin Perez performed better in the second half of last season than what they've gotten out of Dylan Cease to this point. Now, that's just going solely based on ERA. Okay. I'm sure if you looked at their Savant pages, you could very easily debunk this theory, but just based on kind of raw big picture productivity, all that to say, you haven't gotten a whole lot out of the guy, at least recently. There's been a number of games, certainly, where Dylan Cease has given this team a chance to win, and he's looked like Dylan Cease, including once against the Dodgers. So I don't want to discount that, but of late, he's not been very good. What is it? 7 homers given in the last 3 games. Now, on the flip side, we saw that from Michael King to start last year. He got that situated, and he was lights out, one of the best pitchers in the National League after he stopped giving up the long ball. So maybe you can tap into something there with Dylan Cease. If you can get that straightened out, maybe he can look more like himself. But I know you've discussed that, as have others. If they could do 2023 all over again, you want to tell me they wouldn't ship Blake Snell and Josh Hader off somewhere and get some sort of return that they'd probably still be paying the dividends, or that would still be paying dividends now. And so I think, this deadline does kind of provide them the unique ability to sort of thread the needle between being buyers and sellers. You could certainly throw Robert Suarez in there as well if you wanted to, as guys that could be attractive to other teams that would definitely get you some sort of return. That might help in terms of catching, in terms of the bench, in terms of the outfield, maybe a pitcher that doesn't have as much cachet as Dylan Cease. while also looking elsewhere to pick up some pieces. So I think it makes perfect sense at this point to at least give some consideration and see what might be out there for Dylan Cease, because he hasn't been Dylan Cease this year, and because you are very much on the playoff bubble, and then this is a team that is in dire need of young, controllable pieces.
Where you stand on the rumors today from Jeff Passan are that the Padres are heavily in on a guy like Jarren Duran, right? Like the AJ Preller, has been in on him for a while now. Are you of the mindset that, yeah, Jarren Duran, go big or go home? Or, well, actually, why don't you just go out and get a couple average players to replace the well below average players in Martin Maldonado and Trent Brooks and Bryce Johnson, where you make your team more complete instead of going out and spending all your capital, your prospect capital on a guy like Jarren Duran, who doesn't really, like, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but what you need is not what he's giving you, and that's a right-handed power bat.
Yeah, I certainly understand that outlook on it. It always concerns me as well when, teams know how badly you want a specific player, and how, is it necessary for the Red Sox to trade Jarren Duran? I don't know that that's the case. And so that's where you kind of end up in a tricky spot. And that's where I think a guy like Luis Robert is certainly attractive. Buying low on a guy that in the past was a proven talent. We've seen at least flashes of it. What situation the White Sox are in. They're not going to be competitive. This is nothing new for them. And maybe there's a little less cost associated with it than there might be for Jarren Duran. I get Jarren Duran just in terms of you need a left fielder. That is a fun sounding outfield. Duran, Merrill, and Tatis. Defensively, very good. And then, hopefully you're getting kind of that all-star level productivity that we saw primarily last year from Jarren Duran. So I can get it from that perspective. I think he's controllable through 28. So you have him for at least a couple seasons, which, some of these AJ Preller trades, they've been, you're maybe getting a year and a half out of a guy. So if you can get a little bit more length out of the deal, I think that's great. But I always end up a little bit skeptical just in terms of how much you might have to pay. If other teams are like, oh, you're thinking about trading Jarren Duran, maybe they throw their name in the hat, and that drives the cost up a little bit. It's interesting. It's a rumor that's been floating out there for a long time. And, sometimes those come to fruition and sometimes those don't end up going anywhere. I don't think we were expecting necessarily. I'm trying to remember last year, the Dylan Cease trade, the Luis Arraez trade, when they happened. In terms of the calendar, kind of came at a weird time. But all that to say, AJ Preller is full of surprises. We weren't expecting Yu Darvish and Blake Snell in back-to-back days, followed by Joe Musgrove. So again, sometimes it's the deals that we don't see coming I feel a little bit more optimistic about than one that's kind of obviously floating out there and has been for a month now.
And it's interesting. He says here, San Diego, this is Jeff Passan, San Diego is willing to go places most other organizations would never consider. That's AJ Preller to a T. Is that a good thing? Yeah, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? I really don't know, actually, because it kind of sounds a little like a bad thing when things don't work out. Darnay Trip, NBC7, joining us here on Jon and Jim. Are you of the mindset that I am, is this team is who they are? They're just not good offensively. And to have faith that they're just going to flip a switch here is kind of misguided. And they're just going to have to be a team that scratches and claws their way to wins unless, something magical happens here.
Yeah, I think there's part of me that's kind of just biding my time until we see what happens at the deadline. I think the roster as currently constructed certainly has that feeling. There's enough there with, Jackson Merrill slumping, Xander Bogaerts kind of having an up and down season, although he's been better of late. Tatis not having his power. There's Jake, his numbers are okay, but you feel like there's potentially a little bit more in there. There's enough that you could see and say, okay, if those guys pick it up, if the Stars play like Stars, some of these close ball games that they've lost, you can kind of flip the switch on those. But I think for the most part, the bench has not seemed sustainable. The catcher position has not seemed sustainable. Now, are you going to get Jerkson Profar level productivity out of left field at the deadline? I don't know. Are you going to Kyle Higashioka? I mean, there's no guarantee. But I think any upgrade is movement in the right direction. And let's see what AJ Preller is able to pull off, because I feel like it's hard to really answer that question now until we really know what they're working with from August on.
Yeah, Darnay Trip joining us here, NBC 7. Yeah, I agree. It's like you want to wait to see what they do, but at the same time, you know, you put out the tweet and I talked about it, of all the players that they acquired at the deadline, not pitchers, but hitters, position players, and like none of them have panned out. So like to sit here and just expect to go in whatever AJ Preller does for that player to be the magic elixir to this team, I think that's kind of the wrong mindset, because there's data that proves nothing AJ Preller has done at the deadline as far as position player goes has worked in that season. And it to me, like more of the, not the blame, but more of the pressure lies on Jackson Merrill and Fernando Tatis Jr. Because without those guys performing, it's like you can bring in anybody. That this team is still going to be one of the worst teams offensively in the sport.
That is something to watch out for, no doubt. If it's Jarren Duran, you know, that's maybe an argument for Luis Robert, because how much worse is he going to get? Right. You know, because the Mitch Morelands and the Adam Fraziers of the world that they've brought in, G-Man Choi, the list goes on. Even Juan Soto. Juan Soto did not put up Juan Soto numbers the rest of the regular season after the trade in 2022. And so that is something to keep in mind, and something to, you know, maybe tuck away once a deal is made, once an acquisition is made, just to kind of see, okay, can you get them with somebody like Victor Rodriguez, and is he going to be able to get them, you know, where they should be? Is he going to be able to help them perform at the level that they brought this individual here for, whoever that may be? And so there's, unfortunately, because of the track record of some of these mid-year deals, there is reason to be a little bit skeptical. I still think you got to go for it. I still think you got to make moves. But, you know, Adam Frazier was the perfect example of just a weird fit, and it did not work out. And so whatever AJ Preller does, I don't want to have to rely on him spinning it or selling it for us, because that was 2021. It was, we're going to strengthen the strength, which is our bullpen. We couldn't get Max Scherzer. We got Adam Frazier. He's a bat. He'll figure it out. And it just didn't happen. If it's Duran, if it's Luis Robert, if it's a bullpen piece, if it's a catcher, you know, Sean Murphy, a guy whose name is out there, I just want it to make sense and not have to spin it and help us wrap our head around it, because in the past, some of those strange acquisitions have ended up being strange acquisitions.
Yeah, 100%. Brent brought up a name too. Remember Jake Marisnick?
Yeah. Do I ever?
It's just there are some names out there. You're like, what the heck? It's just I agree with you. Darnay Trip, join us for a couple more minutes on Jon and Jim. The Martin Maldonado situation, you've talked about it, and we've talked about it a lot here. I think it came to a head last night, Darnay. Like pinch hitting for him in the fifth inning, and pinch hitting a guy hitting 167. It's a cry for help from Mike Shildt. He even said so much post game, like, these are the players I got to work with. I got to do the best of my ability. Like, that's as close as Mike Shildt will get to saying, I need help. And for me, it's way past time. Martin Maldonado it's not going to make a big difference if you don't have him on this roster. He's not good defensively. He's obviously one of the worst offensive catchers in the sport. I say it's time for Luis Campusano. Just give him time. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, I would have agreed with that pretty much at any point this regular season so far.
Yeah.
And, for whatever reason, they've been hesitant. We get it defensively, this and that. But again, whatever you might lose defensively, hopefully with a little bit more rhythm, you can gain it. In terms of what he does for the lineup. We've seen it in stretches before. I don't think the 0 for 18 version of Luis Campusano is all that's in there. But at a certain point, you got to say, we're running with you, young fella. You're going to start 4 or 5 games a week for a stretch, and let's see how it goes. And I think, again, at this point, given what's happened with the lineup, how this team has played for a couple months now, like, why would you not do it? I have a tough time seeing the downside of it. And it's not the first time they've had to pinch hit for Martin Maldonado or chosen to do so at that stage in the game. It happened again, I think, a week or so ago.
Yep.
And I think the biggest, the word I'm looking for is escaping me right now. Indictment of that is when I saw that happen, I was like, yes, of course, it makes sense that you would do this. It wasn't like, what is Mike Shildt doing?
Right.
If you did that for Kyle Higashioka last year, you'd be like, this is insane. But the fact that you see him pinch hit for Martin Maldonado, maybe with a couple guys on in the 5th inning, you're like, yeah, I'd probably do that. That tells you a lot.
And the problem is the guy that, was at the plate pinch hitting for Martin Maldonado was hitting 167. So it's like they got no options. They got nothing. Darnay, thanks for reluctantly joining me today.
I'm never reluctant, Jim.
Are you sure about that?
It's always enthusiastic.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Thanks, Darnay. Darnay Trip from NBC7 joining us on Jon and Jim. We'll talk to you soon. All right, man. And there he goes. All right. Thanks to Darnay for joining us right there. All right, coming up next, more on Dylan Cease, more on the trade deadline, and we have tickets to give away to Incubus. Stay right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 716 live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, make sure you download the iHeartRadio app. And once you do that, put San Diego Sports 760 into your presets, your number one preset, San Diego Sports 760. Also, Jon and Jim, put it in your presets as well. If you missed any of the show, it's all right there at the podcast center, sportssd.com as well. But if you have it on the app, if you have us in your presets, you have all our interviews, all our hours, all our shows updated on a daily basis. So make sure you download the iHeartRadio app and put San Diego Sports 760 in your presets. Brent, did you see this today with the NBA and the official crews that were announced for Amazon Prime?
No.
So Amazon Prime is now a partner of the NBA along with NBC because it's not going to be on Turner or TNT anymore. It's going to be on ESPN and Amazon Prime and NBC. So Amazon Prime announced its NBA broadcast roster today. Your play-by-play men are Ian Eagle, Kevin Harlan, Michael Grady, and Eric Collins. Kevin Harlan's the biggest name there.
The first two are good. I'm not familiar with the other ones.
I'm not familiar with them either, but I bet you if once I heard their voices,
Yeah,
I'll go, oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, Harlan and Ian Eagle, they're good.
Harlan is the GOAT. I love Kevin Harlan.
He's this generation's Marv Albert.
100%. Marv, man, every time you heard Marv, it was a big game.
Yes.
But now when you hear Kevin Harlan, I get the kind of same feelings. I like Ian Eagle a lot too.
Yeah, he's good.
But Kevin Harlan is your number one. Your analysts are going to be Stan Van Gundy,
Okay.
Brent Barry,
Yeah,
and Del Curry, Steph's dad.
that could be interesting.
Can't wait to hear a game with Del Curry on the call on Amazon Prime with the Warriors.
Maybe he won't do Warrior games because there'll be a conflict.
He used to be the broadcaster, or he's maybe still is, probably. He's the color for Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
So he does Steph games all the time, just not on a national level.
Okay.
He's broadcasted Steph games, just like Michael Thompson has broadcasted Clay's.
Well, I know it's one thing for
games.
like the local thing, but I didn't know if the national would still do that.
And then your sideline reporters are Cassidy Hubbard,
Okay, she's good.
Christina Pink,
Okay.
and Allie Clifton.
I don't know who she is, but the other two I know, they're good.
I am awful with names. I'm great with faces, awful with names. I know Cassidy Hubbard.
Yeah, because she does ESPN.
Christina Pink sounds familiar.
Yes.
So does Allie Clifton. And I guarantee you, if I saw them, I would know who they are. But all in all, I think that's a very, very solid lineup for Amazon Prime.
Christina Pink does NFL sidelines
Okay, that's where I would recognize her from. I was like, that name sounds familiar.
for Fox.
Got it. Okay. So Amazon Prime, their broadcast roster for the NBA, Ian Eagle, Kevin Harlan. I would assume Kevin Harlan's your number one. Like, I would bet that their number one crew is Kevin Harlan, Stan Van Gundy, and Cassidy Hubbard. That's probably their number one. That's their A team. Then you got Ian Eagle, Brent Barry, and maybe Christina Pink. And then a combination of Michael Grady and Eric Collins, along with Del Curry and Allie Clifton. That would be my guess. And that's really good. I like it. Now, do we know who the NBC broadcast crew is? Have they announced their lineup yet?
Isn't it like Reggie Miller?
I think Reggie Miller is a part of it. I want to say Noah Eagle. Ian Eagle's son is also a part of it because he was doing the Olympics on NBC last year. He broadcasted the gold medal game along with Dwayne Wade. What do you got, Brent?
According to Google, Maria Taylor will serve as lead studio host with Carmelo Anthony and Vince Carter as studio analysts.
And Michael Jordan will make an appearance once in a while.
Every once in a while, he'll pop
for
in
2 minutes for like $100 million.
Make a cameo, sell some shoes.
Yeah.
And then Jamal Crawford and Reggie Miller will be game analysts, and then Mike Tirico and Noah Eagle will do play-by-play.
Right. Yeah. So Tirico, that was
and at the bottom, Michael Jordan will be special contributor.
Special contributor. So Tirico and Reggie, as your color and your play-by-play. Then you got Noah Eagle, and who else was on the Jamal Crawford, you said?
Yeah. I know Jamal Crawford from doing the TNT studio show, but I've never heard him do like an actual game. So
Yeah,
that will be interesting.
Yeah, I haven't heard him either. I'm surprised that Dwayne Wade's not a part of it because he was doing the Olympics with Noah Eagle.
Well, Dwayne Wade's like on the Today Show now. He like co-hosts it with like
does a lot of
one of
different
the Bush
things.
twins. It was weird. I was walked into one of the studios this week and I was on. I was like, is that Dwayne Wade on the Today Show?
Right. Yeah, so I like the cruise a lot. I'm interested to see what the studio crew is for Amazon Prime. And it's basically when you look at the roster breakdown of Amazon Prime and NBC, man, does NBA have does the ESPN on NBA or sorry, NBA on ESPN have a long way to go. Man, like other than Mike Breen, we've talked about it a lot during the finals. Woof. You have got to replace Richard Jefferson.
And there's no Kendrick Perkins on this list.
You have got to get rid of Kendrick Perkins. Stephen A. Smith, all he does is yell. Maria Taylor's fine, but like that needs a total overhaul.
Well, what it needs is more Pat McAfee.
Of course, put Pat McAfee on. Just put Pat McAfee and Stephen A. Smith on everything. That's what ESPN does, right?
That would justify their high salaries, at least.
It would, but it would be stretching everybody thin and giving people jobs that they should not have. All right, coming up next, we'll go down to Petco Park, see what Mike Shildt has to say pregame. Also, tickets to Incubus to give away and more on Dylan C. Stay right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by eBay. The Padres go for a series split against the Diamondbacks tonight down at Petco Park. First pitch is set for 6:40. It's going to be Eduardo Rodriguez going against Randy Vasquez for the Padres. Ace slugger Brent Rooker is adding his name to the list of home run derby participants, which takes place Monday in Atlanta. He'll be the first A's player to take part in the home run derby since Matt Olson in 2021. And they just announced the final participant in the home run derby will be Jazz Chisholm Jr. from the Yankees. Swapping out your tires, there's nothing like it with eBay. You'll find the feel you're looking for, from smooth highway rides to grip for rough terrain. Get all the tires you need at prices you'll love. eBay, things people love.
All right, you just heard Brent say they're the final 2 participants in the home run derby this year. So the field is set. Officially, here is the home run derby for Monday in Atlanta. Cal Raleigh, my pick to win, James Wood, Byron Buxton, Ronald Acuna Jr., hometown kid, O'Neal Cruz, Junior Camarino, Brent Rooker, and Jazz Chisholm Jr.
Yeah.
It's funny
because
because
big dumper.
Yeah, we have the we have hundreds TVs in studio and only like 2 of them work. But on our main television here, we have ESPN, and they are doing a like home run derby 2025 preview show, which I'm surprised that ESPN's even doing this for how much they hate baseball.
Dude, this barely warrants like a segment on Sports Center, let alone an entire show.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked they're actually doing a like legit studio show with like
but they're
Jeff
gonna
Passan on it.
But they're gonna air the home run derby though, so they're promoting something they're gonna air though, so it makes sense.
That is true. And they made this whole big thing about coming up next, the final participant of the home run derby's announced. Me and Brent are like, who could it be? Trying to think like, man, is it going to be somebody that like, you know, we weren't thinking of? That's actually like a really good like pick, and we just weren't even thinking of this person. Jazz Chisholm Jr.
It would have been funny if like they just put feelers out to like 5 players, and he was just the first one that called back in time for the show.
Like whoever calls back first is going to be announced as the final contestant participant for the home run derby. Oh, it's Jazz Chisholm. You're like, what? I like the field. I think it's the best that they could have done. I think Cal Raleigh, who, you know, he doesn't lead the league. No, he leads the league in home runs, right? I want to say he does over Aaron Judge. Anyway, he's one of the league leaders in home runs. James Wood is, you know, one of the brightest young stars in the game. Byron Buxton has over 20 home runs. Ronald Acuna Jr. has been on a tear since he returned from his injury from last year. O'Neal Cruz is the only thing in a Pittsburgh Pirates uniform offensively, position player wise, that's worth a damn. He's actually, you know, a really good pick in the home run derby. Junior Camarino's have 20 plus home runs. Brent Rooker has close to 20 home runs this year. My guess is Jazz Chisholm does not have close to 20 home runs this season. But everybody but Jazz Chisholm, I like a lot. And who knows, maybe Jazz Chisholm.
He's got 17.
Okay, just kidding. He does have a good amount. I just didn't think of Jazz Chisholm as like a home run type of guy.
There's 3 guys in the competition that are in the top 10 in home runs. Raleigh leads the league. He's got 36. He's got 2 more than Judge. Then James Wood, he's 7th right now. He's got 24, and Camarino's 9th. He's got 22.
So overall, it's a good field. I like it. My pick, like I said yesterday, I'm sticking with James Wood. They're unless they brought Barry Bonds back from like 2004.
I think Cal Raleigh's gonna. I said it yesterday. He's gonna be the new Pete Alonso,
the big dumper.
Yeah, and he's got the like best nickname in sports.
Best nickname in the sport. So I was just scrolling X during the break. Brent, do you have it or no?
No,
you don't have it. Okay. Well, coming up.
Oh yeah. No, you were asking if I had X.
Oh yeah. No, I was asking if you had the sound that I sent you. So I'm scrolling on X and I'm like, what is this? And I will stop for a lot of things on social media, and a lot of things I'll just scroll past. But one of the things that I will stop for 100% all the time is awful national anthems. That is one thing on social media that I will definitely stop for. There's a couple others, but like that is one thing that I will 100% stop for and watch if it's a bad national anthem. I love me a bad national anthem. Other things, I'll just scroll right past. Oh, bad national anthem? Absolutely. I'm watching the whole freaking thing. So John Boy posted this national anthem in Baltimore. And I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued. Because the first thing he said was, what's going on in Baltimore? So I click on it, I start listening to it, and I get through like 20 seconds and I go, okay, I'm going to need to hear this live on the radio. So I have not heard the entire national anthem, Brent. I've only heard the first like 15 seconds of it. But in the first 15 seconds, oh, this is a train wreck. Listen to the national anthem tonight in Baltimore.
And no, that's not T-Pain. It sounds like the beginning of a Daft Punk song.
What is happening?
Can you imagine just being there in the crowd and everyone looking like, what the hell?
There's nobody there. What is this? What the hell was that?
You could have told me that was an AI thing and I would have believed you, but it wasn't.
That was a real person.
Yeah, that's a real guy with auto-tune.
Singing into an auto-tune and being 100% serious. Was it like sing national anthem giveaway night? Hey, we have an auto-tune for you. Just go sing and it's all good.
You know, I think he gave Fergie a run for money.
Okay, that might be along with like Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it's Roseanne, not Rosie.
Sorry,
O'Donnell.
Roseanne, but it's Rosie O'Donnell. Roseanne.
I'm sure she would be awful as well.
Rosie O'Donnell would be awful too, but Roseanne. I would say right now my top 5 or at least the top 3 list of worst national anthems ever. You have to have Carl Lewis in there. You have to have Roseanne, and you have to have Fergie. I think in any order you can put either one at the top. But Carl Lewis, if you remember Carl Lewis, Fergie and Roseanne, who I believe sang it here in San Diego, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but it was one of the worst national anthems ever. Those are my top 3. I don't think this national anthem in Baltimore, it was here in San Diego.
Yep.
Yeah,
July 25th, 1990, against the Reds.
Yep. So I'm not going to say that national anthem that we just heard in Baltimore is a, wow, this is the worst national anthem I've ever heard.
It's up there.
But it's up there. Play the end of that. Play the end of it again where
sounds all demonic.
It's like the most, you're right, the most demonic sounding national anthem. Like play the end of the national anthem.
Sounds like the Decepticons coming to kill us.
It does. Decepticons, roll out. I know that's the Autobots. Decepticons terrorize. Or no, what does Decepticons say? Decepticons go.
I don't remember.
I know the Autobots roll out.
Yeah, they
Decepticons something, but you're right. It sounds like a transformer.
But yeah, that drunk chick that did the anthem, was it last year's All-Star game? Remember, she got a bunch of crap for it, and she had to like go into rehab because she was like drunk when she did the anthem.
That was a while ago. I know who you're talking about. I forget.
But she was better than this guy, and she was drunk.
Dude, that's an all-timer right there. That is an all-timer for sure. Wow. All right. With that being said,
so you don't think he's going to get invited back?
I mean, maybe people liked it. I think it was kind of like
he was definitely no Enrico Palazzo. Your Naked Gun reference, folks.
It's funny because I'm watching the video and I see like police officers like doing a salute, and I'm like, oh my!
You kind of have to, even if the
I know you do, but
the person doesn't. Even if they suck, you still have to stand up.
I mean, I think there's a couple players that they show, like one of them's trying to hold back from laughing. Like, what is happening right now? That was certainly something for sure. All right. With that being said, do you want to go to see Incubus? Well, we got you. Caller number 6 right now. 877-767-4760. 877-767-4760. Caller number 6. You are winning a pair of tickets to see Incubus with Manchester Orchestra at the North Island Credit Union Amphitheater on Saturday, July 19th. For tickets information, go to Ticketmaster.com. But if you want to go see Incubus with Manchester Orchestra on July 19th, be caller number 6 right now, 877-767-4760. More Jon and Jim coming up next on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. The devastating Texas floods have impacted countless residents. Families have lost their homes. Communities and lives have been shattered, and children, they're still missing. The need for them is urgent. The Community Foundation of the Texas Hill County has launched the Kerr County Flood Relief Fund to support response, relief, and long-term recovery efforts. All donations will go directly to trusted local organizations to provide food, shelter, healthcare, and hope. Join us today and donate to the Kerr County Flood Relief Fund at communityfoundation.org. Coming up next hour, more on Dylan Cease. We'll hopefully hear from Mike Shildt about the final game of the 4-game series with the D-backs and Padres. The rotation is set for this weekend against the Phillies, and it looks like this. So on Friday night, it will be Ryan Bergert. Ryan Bergert is returning to the rotation. Yu Darvish is going to be scheduled and pitched on Saturday night. And then Nick Pivetta will close out the first half for the Padres on Sunday against the Phillies. So over the next 4 days, I said, hey, look, 10-game homestand, go 6-4. You go into the All-Star break 8 games above 500. Regardless of how awful your offense has been, 8 games above 500 is 8 games above 500. Is it sustainable? Probably not still. But, at least you would give yourself a little wiggle room here. Now you're just hoping for a 5-5 homestand because this weekend against the Phillies, man, it's not going to be easy. Could you take 2 or 3 from the Philadelphia Phillies? Absolutely you could. But that would mean that you would need to win 3 of your next 4 to have a 6-4 homestand. Can you do that? With this team and how they played right now, I don't have much faith in them to do that. I don't look at this team right now and say, yeah, they can rip off, 3 of 4 to end the first half against, really good pitching over the weekend against Philly. Can they win tonight? Absolutely they can. But then over the weekend, you're facing Wheeler and Sanchez, and it's, it's going to be very difficult over the weekend. Now, just a reminder, no show tomorrow. I'm out of town. John's also out of town. So we'll be back with you on Monday afternoon. Just a reminder there. I don't want people to tune in at 2 p.m. tomorrow and be like, oh my gosh, where's Jon and Jim? Because that's what happens in the radio business. They say, thank you, but no thank you on a Friday, usually after the show. And you're like, what's happening? But no worries. We're both just scheduled off tomorrow. We'll be back with you on Monday afternoon. But, tonight's game is a very important game. You don't want to lose 3 or 4 to the D-backs here. Going into a series this weekend where you're going to face some really tough pitching. And you just, at some point, the offense is going to have to do something. Now, it might be too little too late when they actually, turn things around. But as of right now, you don't want to go into the All-Star break on a losing streak and playing bad baseball. But Jim, they lost 6-7 before the All-Star break last year. They did. And yes, they did win, 8 of their 10 road games. They had an 8-game winning streak on their 10-game road trip to start the second half last season. But as I said earlier in the show, the team's offense last year was much better than this year's offense, even with a 50-50 record. Much better. There were some signs there of them turning things around and getting hot because they had it in them. They showed it throughout the first half. Even though the record wasn't good, offensively, they showed that they could put up runs consistently. How many comebacks did they have in the first half last year? A lot. And it wasn't just like 1-run comebacks. It was like 4 or 5-run comeback victories. How many walk-offs did they have last season? In the first half especially. A lot. There were signs last year. It was like, can this team just get better pitching and be more consistent offensively? But, they had power last year. They put up big innings consistently. They didn't do what this team has done this year multiple times, which is scoring droughts, couldn't hit with runners in scoring position, awful with the bases loaded, key contributors on the team underperforming greatly. You had a bunch of, role players last year really helping this team out. This year, Gavin Sheets has helped this team out, but other than him, every other role player on this team has flopped. And I did the math. The team this year has scored 369 runs. Nice. To get to the number of runs scored the team had last year, they would need to average over their final 70 plus games 5.5 runs per game. They would need to average 5.5 runs per outing for the rest of the year just to equal the total of runs scored this team had last year. Are you confident that that's happening? Because I'm not. And until they show it, I don't know how much longer people are going to just wait around for this team to put up a bunch of runs on the board. All right, coming up next, Dylan Cease, the curious case of Dylan Cease. We'll talk about what to do with him and can he turn his season around, or should the Padres look to try to trade Dylan Cease at the deadline? We'll talk about that coming up next hour. Final hour of Jon and Jim for the week coming up next on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
Their support is sponsored by Mom's Meals at momsmeals.com/California. The Padres go for a series split tonight against the Diamondbacks down at Petco Park. First pitch is set for 6:40. It's going to be Eduardo Rodriguez going for the Snakes and Randy Vasquez going for the Padres. Ace slugger Brent Rooker is adding his name to the list of Home Run Derby participants, which takes place Monday. He is also joining the other new participant today, Yankees outfielder Jazz Chisholm Jr. The Home Run Derby is on Monday, and the odds for that have just come out, and Cal Raleigh is the favorite. Are you homebound, facing chronic health conditions, and find it difficult to access healthy food or prepare meals on your own? Mom's Meals provides home-delivered, medically tailored meals designed by registered dietitians and professional chefs. See if you qualify for meals at no cost. Visit momsmeals.com/California.
All right, final hour of Jon and Jim for the week. Padres D-backs final game of their 4-game series later tonight, 6:40 at Petco Park. Padres looking for the split, and last night was not pretty. It was not pretty. You know, offensively, once again, this team can't score runs consistently. You knew it wasn't going to be a good night last night, Brent, when Fernando Tatis Jr. leads off the game with a double down the left field line, and immediately the Padres go out, out, out. So right away, they're 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position in the game. In the very first inning, they cannot get Fernando Tatis Jr. home from second. You just knew, all right, that's not a good omen. And then we get to Dylan Cease, and once again just puts up a very subpar outing. You know, coming into this year, the guy was supposed to be one of your best pitchers. You know, he finished 4th in Cy Young voting last year. He threw a no-hitter last year for you. At times last season, in stretches, he was dominant. AJ Preller traded for him to be a front line starting pitcher for you. And this year, he's just completely wet the bed. I mean, this year has just been a failure for Dylan Cease. And you look at his numbers, they're not good at all. A 4.88 ERA with a 1.33 whip. Now, he has some good strikeout numbers, 129 strikeouts and 103 in the third innings. But, you know, the team this year needed Dylan Cease to perform, and he has not. And over the course of his career, you know, this was bound to be a bad season for him, right? The Padres have an odd even year problem right now. Dylan Cease has an odd even year problem since 2021. Now, 2021 actually wasn't a bad year. Like, if you had this year from Dylan Cease, it'd be considered a great season. 13-7 with a 3.91 ERA and 32 games pitched. And then in 2022, he really, you know, put his name out there as one of the best pitchers in baseball with a 2.2 ERA and 32 game start. 1 complete game, 1 shutout, 184 innings pitched, went 14-8, finished second in Cy Young voting. And you're like, whoa, all right. This guy's one of the best pitchers in baseball. And then 2023 happened, and it was the worst season in baseball history from a team in the Chicago White Sox. Soon to be topped by the 2025 Colorado Rockies. But as of right now, the 2023 White Sox are the worst team in baseball history. And Dylan Cease was out there every fifth day, made 33 starts, had a 4.58 ERA. Other than his rookie year in 2019, Brent, this is shaping up to be Dylan Cease's worst season of his career. And it's the most important season of his career, you could argue, because he's a free agent. He's got Scott Boras as his agent. He's looking for a big payday. And he's just fallen flat. I mentioned this last night on the wrap-up show. He's a guy that I've heard and compared, like, hey, he's the right-handed Blake Snell. His stuff is really good, but he's wildly inconsistent, and he's very frustrating to watch. But man, when he is on, he's literally unhittable. Blake Snell's twice the pitcher that Dylan Cease is, and it's not even close. Dylan Cease wishes he was Blake Snell. Hell, I wish Dylan Cease was Blake Snell. That's how frustrated I am with Dylan Cease this year. That I wish he was Blake Snell, not the version of Blake Snell right now, because the version of Blake Snell right now is injured. But, when Blake Snell is healthy and out there every fifth day over the last couple years, there's no doubt I would take him over Dylan Cease. And I despise watching Blake Snell pitch. I can't stand watching Blake Snell pitch. Yet he's twice the pitcher that Dylan Cease is. Dylan Cease does not have 2 Cy Youngs. Dylan Cease does not have the postseason success that Blake Snell has. Not even close. But getting away from the comparisons, because it's not fair to Blake Snell to compare Dylan Cease to him. You came in this year and coming off of the awful postseason that you had against the Dodgers. Game 1, you were bad. And then game 4, and don't even get me started on game 4. Going into a walk year, the thought process was, all right, Dylan Cease and Michael King at the top of your rotation, just like last year. This year, with the problems that this team has, at least you can count on that. Well, Michael King's hurt, and Dylan Cease sucks. So the top of your rotation, when you were expected to see Dylan Cease and Michael King be your 1-2, your 2 best pitchers in your rotation right now are Nick Pivetta and Randy Vasquez. Like, if I told you before the season, Brent, their second best offensive player would be Gavin Sheets, and their 2 most consistent pitchers in the rotation would be Nick Pivetta and Randy Vasquez, what would you tell me?
We're only going to win 63 games this year.
Exactly.
Now, we're going to compare Cease now to another pitcher that's struggling this season and having a horrible season that Jim Bowden keeps telling us we need to go get.
Oh, Sandy Alcantara?
Who would you rather have at this moment right now? Cease or Alcantara?
Oh, well, Cease.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I would much rather have Cease right now than Alcantara. I'm not saying Dylan Cease is the worst pitcher in baseball. He has one of the worst ERAs in baseball for pitchers that are qualified. But he's not the worst pitcher in the sport, not even close. He just has one of the worst ERAs in the sport. That's all. Merrill Kelly the other night. No, excuse me. Zach Gallen, not Merrill Kelly. Zach Gallen the other night had one of the worst ERAs in the sport. I think of all qualified starting pitchers, he might have had the worst ERA coming in to his start the other night against the Padres. And what did he do? Shoved. But looking at baseball right now, looking at pitchers that are qualified, the bottom 5 pitchers in the sport in ERA are Luis Severino with the Don't Call Me Oakland, Sacramento, soon to be Las Vegas A's.
That was money well spent.
I would say, though, Brent, just a quick side here on Luis Severino. He is 2-8, or sorry, he's 2-10 with a 5.30 ERA, a 1.3 WHIP, 108 innings pitched, 73 strikeouts. But
he's pitching in a AAA park.
He's pitching in a AAA park. If I'm looking at his splits here,
he's unstoppable on the road and he sucks at home.
His road ERA. This is his road ERA. On the road, he's 2-2 and 8 starts with a 3 ERA. At home, in 11 starts, he's 0-8 with a 7.04 ERA.
That's worse than Colorado.
So that tells me, not the whole story with Luis Severino. But, looking at the bottom 5 pitchers in baseball for ERA, it's funny because 2 of them are on the D-backs and 2 of them completely shoved against the Padres the last 2 nights. Brandon Pfaadt and Zach Gallen. They have 2 of the worst ERAs in the sport. Brandon Pfaadt is a 5.16 ERA. Zach Gallen is a 5.15 ERA. And last night, Brandon Pfaadt went 8 innings for the first time in his career, and Zach Gallen completely shoved on Tuesday night.
That's just like when, so-and-so is making his major league debut. Oh, here comes a 3-hit shutout through 8 innings.
Well, it's funny because if I'm looking at the bottom ERAs in the sport, a lot of them have faced the Padres recently, and a lot of them have shoved against the Padres. Brandon Pfaadt, Zach Gallen, Nick Martinez, just to name a few.
Martinez almost no hit him.
Probably should have. And then you got Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease, out of 65 qualified starting pitchers in baseball for ERA, Dylan Cease is right now 60th out of 65 with a 4.88 ERA. He's right there with guys like Kyle Hendricks of the Angels. He's not pitched anywhere near a top of the rotation guy this year. He's pitched more like a 5. Actually, I mean, you could argue that, I wasn't going to say it, but he's been bad. He's a 4 or a 5, and the team needs him to be a 1 or a 2. I see all these. I saw yesterday, Brent. Oh well, his fastball velocity, best of his career. His first pitch, Shildt said post game, like, oh man, his first pitch strike percentage is the best in the sport or the best in his career. Like, save me with all these advanced analytics. I have 2 eyes. I watch the game. The guy stinks this year. You don't need to tell me advanced analytics to tell me the story, because right now, whatever advanced analytics that you're using to dress this pig up and put lipstick on it are not matching what I'm watching on the field. What I'm watching on the field is one of the worst pitchers, starting pitchers in the league right now, as far as ERA goes. So then the question becomes like, hey, at the trade deadline, do you trade him? I don't think they're going to trade him, nor do I think they should trade him. But I'm just throwing it out there of like, do you want to maybe potentially see what you could get for Dylan Cease, because you're not going to re-sign him next year? The scariest thing of this whole thing is they offer him the qualifying offer, right, Brent? Say that's like 23, 24, 25 million. Because what you want to do is you want to get that draft pick. So you offer him the qualifying to get the draft pick when he goes signs, somewhere else, right? What if he has such a bad year that he considers picking up the qualifying offer to then, gain value back next year to get that big time contract that he was looking for? If I'm a Padres fan, like, do I really want to see another year of Dylan Cease? At this point in time, I would think that a lot of Padres fans are just over it. Now, hopefully, he has a second half where you go, wow, without him, they don't make the postseason. But I just don't have much faith in Dylan Cease right now, every 5th day, to go out there and put up zeros, because he hasn't done it all year long.
No, and like last night was so frustrating because like the first 2 innings, like okay, he's kind of getting it going and
Looks good.
And
He has that moments.
as soon as you like have it out of your lips and you're like, hey, I think he's got this turned or crack. You're like, oh, never mind. That's
Exactly.
a home run. And then like you go another few batters, like okay, that's just fluke. It's just a bad pitch, and it's like crack. Oh, never mind.
The one thing that and we'll get to break here in a minute. We have some things to talk about with Giannis on the other side, but like this narrative or this notion of like, well, he's been really good this year. Besides just a couple innings per outing, like besides the giant iceberg that we hit, the Titanic's fine.
It's a good cruise until that.
Yeah, it was a good cruise until the Titanic hit the iceberg. Like what? A couple bad innings in outing. It like is the difference between being a really good pitcher in this league and what Dylan Cease is right now, which is awful. All right, coming up next. Giannis was on a stream today talking about his future in Milwaukee, said some interesting things, and of course, we'll dissect it coming up next on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. Hey guys, it's Jim from Jon and Jim for the all-new Jamul Casino Resort. Join them every Monday in July for a chance to win big with 10 winners every hour at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., and 9 p.m. Your odds there are better than ever. They're Onyx players. They're going to receive an extra $100 in cash bonuses on top of their winnings. Plus, you can earn entries all month long by playing and getting two-time entries on Tuesdays with at least $500 in cash for all winners and a chance to win up to $50,000 in big deal money. This is a promotion that you will not want to miss. Also, if you want to watch all the action sporting wise, Padres games, MLS soccer with the SDFC and the Wave, go to Tony Gwynn Sports Pub at Jamul Casino. They have everything you need, all the sporting events that you want to watch. Jamul Casino, the player's place. San Diego Sports 760 has 13 chances to win $1,000 every weekday with the bonus bucks giveaway. Listen for the keyword and enter it at sportssd.com. Next chance to win $1,000 coming up at 6 p.m. right here on San Diego Sports 760. So, you know who the streamer is? iShow Speed, Brent.
Is it ISO or ISO or what you said?
iShow Speed, ISO Speed, iShow,
something like that. I know who he is because he's Logan Paul's buddy. So I know him from wrestling because he was dressed up as like the prime bottle or whatever.
He also got speared into oblivion by Braun Breaker.
Oh, that guy. Okay, I remember him. Okay,
so he's a streamer, pretty famous streamer actually, probably one of the top streamers in the world, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he's big. I remember during the election, everyone the candidates were fighting to go on his show, and he didn't want anything to do with it.
That was Kai Cenat.
Oh, okay.
So there's like a couple. There's Kai Cenat and iShow Speed. Those are like the two I only really know. Kai's huge, but Speed is also big as well. And he went to Greece.
Oh, okay. That makes sense then.
To hang out with Giannis Antetokounmpo for like, I think a day or two. I don't know the whole circumstance of it. I just saw this pop up on my timeline, and it's crazy how a streamer can get these types of answers out from professional athletes over like actual reporters. And Speed asked him about the Knicks and his future in Milwaukee. Here's what Giannis had to say.
LA, the tax is bad. New York, tax is bad. Yeah. Hell no.
A lot of people tried to convince me to go and play there and stuff.
Oh, no. So you staying in Milwaukee?
Probably. We'll see. See. Probably. I love Milwaukee.
He really loves Milwaukee. I do believe him.
Does, though.
I do believe him that he does love Milwaukee, but if I'm a Bucks fan, Brent, that's not the biggest ringing endorsement for Giannis to be returning here.
He's fine. I'm not worried about it. I think with Tatum and everyone else going down, his desire to leave lessened. Just because the East is up for grabs. Granted, they were part of that mess with Dame getting hurt and he's out and everything, but the East is up for grabs next year, and he knows it. So even with a mediocre Bucks team surrounding him, he could still maybe get there in the East. I don't know if they'll win it and beat the team, whoever goes for the West, but the East is wide open. And I kind of laugh because that Speed guy's reaction is like everyone like in the mainstream media's reaction when he's like, no, I actually love Milwaukee.
Yeah,
it's just like
no one knows Milwaukee.
Well, he does. He actually does. I always tell people if he didn't love Milwaukee, he would have left the last time he had a chance to leave.
True.
If some place is so horrible that you hate it there and it's so boring and so bad, he would have left when his last contract was up. He could have got a max deal anywhere. He didn't have to stay there, but he stayed. And, he's pretty much treated like a god in Milwaukee. If he goes to the Knicks or something, he's just going to be another Knick.
But if he won a title in New York.
Yeah, he's got to win it first, though. If he doesn't, then it's for nothing. And he's already won a title in Milwaukee. So
he'd be a god. He would be. I mean, his star level is already at a peak right now, but it would jump to another level if he won a championship in New York.
Well, yeah, because they always give more credit if you win in multiple cities with multiple teams. Look at LeBron.
Yeah. The thing with Giannis, like, I feel like this has been the talking point the last couple years of Giannis leaving the Bucks, and I'm with you. I don't see it happening because. One, Giannis is very loyal. Two, I mean, what team out there would the Bucks, trade him to? What team out there has the assets that the Bucks want in return for Giannis? Right now, I can't think of any.
The Spurs, but if they were going to do it, they would have done it in a draft day.
Right, and even then,
OKC, but they don't need him.
No, even then, it's like, okay, the Spurs, so you get the number 2 overall pick. and I'm blanking on who else they have. They're not trading Wemby.
No, they would have took the number 2 pick that they got, that point guard this year in the draft, and then
From Rutgers.
Yeah, and then maybe that guy from last year, that French dude that nobody remembers his name, the guy rookie of the year. Maybe do both of those, because then the Bucks would get a backcourt back.
That's the thing, is like, would that be enough for Giannis? I know, like, the Luka trade, you go back to that, you did have to trade a Hall of Famer for Luka. Now, again, it was a Hall of Famer that's always injured in Anthony Davis, but still, trading away a player like Luka still took the Lakers to have to trade away Anthony Davis, a Hall of Famer, in doing so.
Well, the Spurs, it would have been those 2 players, and then probably at least 1 or 2 number ones, whether they're protected or unprotected. That's where you're getting in the weeds with NBA stuff lately. But, he would get a haul. I also think, too, that maybe the Bucks didn't get as many calls as they wanted, or they at least didn't get as much offered as they thought they were going to get. So then it kind of backed off, because remember, this was like the big story for a while, and then it just kind of faded away, and now it's not really being talked about, at least not post draft.
All right, coming up next, if you missed it earlier in the show, Darnay Trip, join me. You'll hear that conversation coming up next, and then we'll wrap up the show with My Back Page. Stay with us right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
The support is sponsored by Mom's Meals at momsmeals.com/California. The Padres go for a series split tonight down at Petco against the Diamondbacks. First pitch is set for a little over an hour from now at 6:40. It's going to be Eduardo Rodriguez going for the Diamondbacks and Randy Vasquez on the hill for the Padres. And we have our final two participants in the home run derby on Monday. It's going to be ace slugger Brent Rooker and Yankees hitter Jazz Chisholm Jr. will participate in Monday's derby. Are you having trouble accessing healthy meals following a hospital stay or to support a health condition? Mom's Meals delivers nutritious meals tailored to your health needs. Mom's Meals works with health plans and state programs to provide meals at no cost to those who are eligible. See if you qualify. momsmeals.com/California.
All right, back here on Jon and Jim. Darnay Trip joined us earlier in the show today, and we started our conversation, if you missed it, with Dylan Cease. And should AJ put him on the block?
I don't see too much harm in doing it. Obviously, there's the personal aspect of these things. It always gets tricky, but that's part of professional sports, right? I mean, these guys Dylan Cease has been traded before. This is nothing new. I think, the unfortunate reality is, Martin Perez performed better in the second half of last season than what they've gotten out of Dylan Cease to this point. Now, that's just going solely based on ERA. Okay. I'm sure if you looked at their Savant pages, you could very easily debunk this theory, but just based on kind of raw big picture productivity, all that to say, you haven't gotten a whole lot out of the guy, at least recently. There's been a number of games, certainly, where Dylan Cease has given this team a chance to win, and he's looked like Dylan Cease, including once against the Dodgers. So I don't want to discount that, but of late, he's not been very good. 7 homers given in the last 3 games. Now, on the flip side, we saw that from Michael King to start last year. He got that situated, and he was lights out, one of the best pitchers in the National League after he stopped giving up the long ball. So maybe you can tap into something there with Dylan Cease. If you can get that straightened out, maybe he can look more like himself. But I know you've discussed that, as have others. If they could do 2023 all over again, you want to tell me they wouldn't ship Blake Snell and Josh Hader off somewhere and get some sort of return that they'd probably still be paying the dividends, or that would still be paying dividends now. And so I think, this deadline does kind of provide them the unique ability to sort of thread the needle between being buyers and sellers. You could certainly throw Robert Suarez in there as well if you wanted to, as guys that could be attractive to other teams that would definitely get you some sort of return. That might help in terms of catching, in terms of the bench, in terms of the outfield, maybe a pitcher that doesn't have as much cachet as Dylan Cease, while also looking elsewhere to pick up some pieces. So I think it makes perfect sense at this point to at least give some consideration and see what might be out there for Dylan Cease, because he hasn't been Dylan Cease this year, and because you are very much on the playoff bubble, and then this is a team that is in dire need of young, controllable pieces.
Where you stand on the rumors today from Jeff Passan are that the Padres are heavily in on a guy like Jarren Duran, right? Like the AJ Preller, has been in on him for a while now. Are you of the mindset that, yeah, Jarren Duran, go big or go home? Or, well, actually, why don't you just go out and get a couple average players to replace the well below average players in Martin Maldonado and Trenton Brooks and Bryce Johnson, where you make your team more complete instead of going out and spending all your capital, your prospect capital on a guy like Jarren Duran, who doesn't really, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but what you need is not what he's giving you, and that's a right-handed power bat.
Yeah, I certainly understand that outlook on it. It always concerns me as well when teams know how badly you want a specific player, and how, is it necessary for the Red Sox to trade Jarren Duran? I don't know that that's the case. And so that's where you kind of end up in a tricky spot. And that's where I think a guy like Luis Robert is certainly attractive. Buying low on a guy that in the past was a proven talent. We've seen at least flashes of it. You know what situation the White Sox are in. They're not going to be competitive. This is nothing new for them. And maybe there's a little less cost associated with it than there might be for Jarren Duran. I get Jarren Duran just in terms of you need a left fielder. That is a fun sounding outfield. Duran, Merrill, and Tatis. Defensively, very good. And, you know, hopefully you're getting kind of that all-star level productivity that we saw primarily last year from Jarren Duran. So, I can get it from that perspective. I think he's controllable through 28. So you have him for at least a couple seasons, which, you know, some of these AJ Preller trades, they've been, you know, you're maybe getting a year and a half out of a guy. So you can get a little bit more length out of the deal. I think that's great. But I always end up a little bit skeptical just in terms of how much you might have to pay. If other teams are like, oh, you're thinking about trading Jarren Duran, maybe they throw their name in the hat and that drives the cost up a little bit. It's interesting. It's a rumor that's been floating out there for a long time. And, you know, sometimes those come to fruition and sometimes those don't end up going anywhere. I don't think we were expecting necessarily. I'm trying to remember last year, the Dylan Cease trade, the Luis Arraez trade, when they happened. In terms of the calendar, kind of came at a weird time. But all that to say, AJ Preller is full of surprises. We weren't expecting Yu Darvish and Blake Snell in like back-to-back days, followed by Joe Musgrove. So again, sometimes it's the deals that we don't see coming. I feel a little bit more optimistic about than one that's kind of obviously floating out there and has been for like a month now.
And it's interesting. He says here, San Diego, this is Jeff Passan, San Diego is willing to go places most other organizations would never consider. Like that's AJ Preller to a T. Is that
a good thing?
Yeah, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? I really don't know, actually, because it kind of sounds a little like a bad thing when things don't work out. Darnay Trip, NBC7, joining us here on Jon and Jim. Are you of the mindset that I am, is like, this team is who they are. They're just not good offensively. And to have faith that they're just going to flip a switch here is kind of misguided. And they're just going to have to be a team that scratches and claws their way to wins unless, something magical happens here.
Yeah, I think there's part of me that's kind of just biding my time until we see what happens at the deadline. I think the roster as currently constructed certainly has that feeling. There's enough there with, Jackson Merrill slumping, Xander Bogaerts kind of having an up and down season, although he's been better of late. Tatis not having his power. There's Jake, his numbers are okay, but you feel like there's potentially a little bit more in there. There's enough that you could see and say, okay, if those guys pick it up, if the Stars play like Stars, some of these close ball games that they've lost, you can kind of flip the switch on those. But I think for the most part, the bench has not seemed sustainable. The catcher position has not seemed sustainable. Now, are you going to get Jurickson Profar level productivity out of left field at the deadline? I don't know. Are you going to get Kyle Higashioka? I mean, there's no guarantee. But I think any upgrade is movement in the right direction. And let's see what AJ Preller is able to pull off, because I feel like it's hard to really answer that question now until we really know what they're working with from August on.
Yeah, Darnay Trip joining us here, NBC7. Yeah, I agree. It's like you want to wait to see what they do, but at the same time, you put out the tweet and I talked about it, of all the players that they acquired at the deadline, not pitchers, but hitters, position players, and none of them have panned out. So to sit here and just expect to go in whatever AJ Preller does for that player to be the magic elixir to this team, I think that's kind of the wrong mindset, because there's data that proves nothing AJ Preller has done at the deadline as far as position player goes has worked in that season. And it to me, more of the, not the blame, but more of the pressure lies on Jackson Merrill and Fernando Tatis Jr., because without those guys performing, it's like you can bring in anybody. That this team is still going to be one of the worst teams offensively in the sport.
That is something to watch out for, no doubt. If it's Jarren Duran, that's maybe an argument for Luis Robert, because how much worse is he going to get?
Right.
because the Mitch Morelands and the Adam Frazier's of the world that they've brought in, G-Man Choi, the list goes on. Even Juan Soto. Juan Soto did not put up Juan Soto numbers the rest of the regular season after the trade in 2022. And so that is something to keep in mind and something to, maybe tuck away once a deal is made, once an acquisition is made, just to kind of see, okay, can you get them with somebody like Victor Rodriguez? And is he going to be able to get them, where they should be? Is he going to be able to help them perform at the level that they brought this individual here for, whoever that may be? And so there's, unfortunately, because of the track record of some of these mid-year deals, there is reason to be a little bit skeptical. I still think you got to go for it. I still think you got to make moves. But, Adam Frazier was the perfect example of just a weird fit, and it did not work out. And so whatever AJ Preller does, I don't want to have to rely on him spinning it or selling it for us, because that was 2021. We're going to strengthen the strength, which is our bullpen. We couldn't get Max Scherzer. We got Adam Frazier. He's a bat. He'll figure it out. And it just didn't happen. If it's Duran, if it's Luis Robert, if it's a bullpen piece, if it's a catcher, Sean Murphy, a guy whose name is out there, I just want it to make sense and not have to spin it and help us wrap our head around it, because in the past, some of those strange acquisitions have ended up being strange acquisitions.
Yeah, 100%. Brent brought up a name too. Remember Jake Marisnik?
Yeah. Do I ever?
It's just there are some names out there. You're like, what the heck? It's just I agree with you. Darnay Trip joining us for a couple more minutes on Jon and Jim. The Martin Maldonado situation, you've talked about it, and we've talked about it a lot here. I think it came to a head last night, Darnay. Like pinch hitting for him in the fifth inning, and pinch hitting a guy hitting 167. It's a cry for help from Mike Shildt. He even said so much post game, like, these are the players I got to work with. I got to do the best of my ability. Like, that's as close as Mike Shildt will get to saying, I need help. And for me, it's way past time. Martin Maldonado it's not going to make a big difference if you don't have him on this roster. He's not good defensively. He's obviously one of the worst offensive catchers in the sport. I say it's time for Luis Campusano. Just give him time. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, I would have agreed with that pretty much at any point this regular season so far.
Yeah.
And, for whatever reason, they've been hesitant. We get it defensively, this and that. But again, whatever you might lose defensively, hopefully with a little bit more rhythm, you can gain it. In terms of what he does for the lineup. We've seen it in stretches before. I don't think the 0 for 18 version of Luis Campusano is all that's in there. But at a certain point, you got to say, we're running with you, young fella. You're going to start 4 or 5 games a week for a stretch, and let's see how it goes. And I think, again, at this point, given what's happened with the lineup, how this team has played for a couple months now, why would you not do it? I have a tough time seeing the downside of it. And it's not the first time they've had to pinch hit for Martin Maldonado or chosen to do so at that stage in the game. It happened again, I think, a week or so ago. Yep. And I think the biggest, the word I'm looking for is escaping me right now. Indictment of that is when I saw that happen, I was like, yes, of course, it makes sense that you would do this. It wasn't like, what is Mike Shildt doing? Right. If you did that for Kyle Higashioka last year, you'd be like, this is insane. But the fact that you see him pinch hit for Martin Maldonado, maybe with a couple guys on in the 5th inning, you're like, yeah, I'd probably do that. That tells you a lot.
And the problem is the guy that, was at the plate pinch hitting for Martin Maldonado was hitting 167. So it's like they got no options. They got nothing. Darnay, thanks for reluctantly joining me today.
I'm never reluctant, Jim.
Are you sure about that?
It's always enthusiastic.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Thanks, Darnay. All right, coming up next, we'll wrap up the week with my back page. Stay with us right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, wrapping it up for the week here on Jon and Jim. Huge announcement. Huge show announcement. Next week, all next week, every single day, we will be giving away a pair of badges to Comic-Con. Easily one of our biggest giveaways that we've ever had.
Yes.
We're giving away not one, but 2 tickets, 2 badges per day, all next week leading up to Comic-Con. So you're going to want to listen next week to find out how to win those badges.
Yeah. We haven't figured out what we're going to to do yet.
We have time.
You guys are going to have to earn them.
This
is like
this is not a
tippy
caller
top,
number 6. This is not a Team Jon versus Team Jim. This is like a next level. You got to earn it to win these badges next week. So a pair of badges per day next week for Comic-Con. So you're going to want to listen all next week for that. All right, Brent, let's wrap up the show with this. So tomorrow is National French Fry Day, Brent.
Okay.
And since we won't be here, I figured I'd tell you today that tomorrow is National French Fry Day. Here are some deals for National French Fry Day tomorrow.
At every place that serves French fries?
Not every single place,
okay.
but a lot of fast food places will be on this list. Very easily accessible. Arby's. If you have an Arby's reward account, you can get 1 any size fry when you order a 1/4 pound Angus cheesesteak for an online pickup in-store only. Burger King, with any $1 purchase, Royal Perk members can get a free any size fry at Burger King. Jack in the Box, you can get a free any size fry, regular or curly, with a $1 purchase in the app tomorrow. At McDonald's, which is already having a big week considering its snack wrap is back, is offering customers free medium fries with any $1 purchase made in its app. Shake Shack, for National French Fry Day, is offering customers a free side of fries with any purchase. You'll just need to use the code FREEFRY in the Shake app. Taco Bell is
I forgot they have fries.
Is
now.
jumping in on the French Fry Day. Taco Bell is offering a free order of regular size nacho fries with a $10 purchase made in its app, or on orders of at least $20 made on DoorDash and Grubhub for National French Fry Day.
You remember it used to be hard to spend $10 at Taco Bell?
Now it's very easy.
Yeah, now it's like 2 tacos and you're there.
Wendy's, you can find free any size hot and crispy fries with any purchase on the Wendy's app or website. If you're a big fan of food-related national holidays, you'll not need to wait long because Saturday is also National Jell-O Day, by the way, and National Pecan Pie Day.
Are you a big pecan pie person?
Not really. I don't think I can remember the last time I had pecan pie, to be honest with you.
See, my mom is a big pecan pie person.
Mm-hmm.
I hate pecans, but I like the jelly. You know, the part of the pie that's like underneath the pecans. I like the jelly part of it. I don't like the pecans. So I always like scrape the pecans off and just eat the jelly.
You watched Pokemon when you were growing up, right?
No.
You didn't?
No, that was past.
Oh, that's right. It's like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, you have to remember I'll be 45 in like 2.5 weeks. So
I grew up in the Pokemon era, and of course
that was right on the edge of when I aged out of that stuff.
Well, the voice of some famous characters in the series, such as James Meowth, Professor Oak, Gary Oak, and more, has passed away today at the age of 71. Actor James Carter has passed away today. He was the voice actor for a lot of famous voices in cartoons growing up as a kid. He did Yu-Gi-Oh!, did Pokemon. You would recognize his voice if you heard it.
Okay.
But, James Carter passed away today at the age of 71. The Dodgers, the Doyers, they unveiled a new bobblehead they're giving away on August 8th. Makes sense on August 8th to give away this bobblehead. It's a Kobe Bryant bobblehead.
Okay.
He's wearing his Lakers 24 jersey with Nike 6 Dodger kicks, holding a baseball bat. I can only imagine what that line's going to be like and how many scalpers are going to be there.
Dude, they lined up for miles for a stupid Ohtani dog bobblehead.
I mean,
this is Kobe. So.
I would not want to be anywhere near that. I can only imagine how much this is going to go for on eBay.
Well, God, what did the dog ones go for?
This one's got to go for $1,000, over $1,000.
That's what I'm saying. If the dog ones are going for $500-700, then this should easily go for the 1,000.
Dude, no, thank you. I'm not standing in line for that. I'll stand in line for things, but like not for that because it will just be an S show. So I'm good. And finally, the original Birkin bag that was made for Jane Birkin. You know Birkin bags. You've heard of Birkin? No? Okay. Anyway, Birkin bags, they're very popular, like purse, like bag, like Birkin. Birkenstock.
I'm not up on my purses.
Well, the word Birkin is a very famous,
like
brand.
As in Birkenstocks, like the sandals, like hippies wear.
This bag that was the original Birkin bag made for Jane Birkin in 1985 just sold for a record $10 million, officially the most expensive handbag ever sold. It's not even close. Why would I ever spend $10 million on a bag is beyond me. All right, that will do it for Jon and Jim today. Thanks to Brent. Thanks to Darnay Trip for joining me. Thanks to all of you out there for interacting and calling in to the show. Again, tomorrow we are off. We will be back with you on Monday starting at 2 p.m. Until then, stay right here on San Diego Sports 760 and listen live on the iHeartRadio app.